And what is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Friday show, gang. Last full weekday main slate of the MLB season. Crazy. Way too fast. One last time around the diamond should be fun. Good slate to talk about, 12 games up. A little bit of a late start, but we'll make up the time. I'll talk fast through some of these spots. Got a Coors Field game on deck that includes a $8,000 Shohei Ohtani on DraftKings, more expensive than half the pitching slate. Totally wild. Good group in here already. Say hi to Lone Wolf and Male Nurses Rock. Anthony Taylor's here. Travis Duarte's here. I'm sure we'll get some more people coming in the door in the next couple of minutes. If you're wondering where the football show is, it is definitely going to be tomorrow at this point. So it'll be tomorrow in the evening, sometime around, I'm just realizing that the Prize Picks thing is up on the screen over there. I took that down the other day and I put the football helmet back, and now I'm just officially sponsoring Prize Picks. Anyway, this show is not brought to you by Prize Picks, but check them out anyway. Why not? So I'm going to the Yanks game tomorrow, assuming that there's no weather concerns or anything like that. And then I'll be back in. Typically, I can get back here 5 or 6 o'clock, so it'll probably be, I'll be all prepared before I leave for the game, give myself a little bit of time to do one final update before the show, make sure I don't miss anything, and we'll probably jump on 6:30, 7 o'clock tomorrow, do a couple hours through the main slate. If you missed it, we did that yesterday before the Thursday Showdown show. We did the overview, we talked quarterbacks, we talked game situations, talked some loosely about stacks, and some references to some of the skill players. So if you're just looking for like an hour and change show, knock it out, get a little overview on the slate, you've got that on the channel from yesterday, and we'll do the marathon tomorrow. Full content will go up on the site tonight. I know I said that yesterday, but I just kept falling further and further behind it as I was working on everything. Still a lot to get done, but projections and everything will be up today. And you guys will have that to work with for all of tomorrow, during the day, and all of Sunday, obviously. So, interesting one to dive into is Cujo. I was wondering where Cujo was. Harold Haas is here as well. Good to see you guys. So, again, we do have a very solid 12-gamer. Let me close up some of these other things in the background. Still got the power index open for reasons. Got a handful of lineups in already for this one. I just updated up on the site, so we should have fairly fresh projections and lineups. Let me close the NFL file, too. All right. So a little bit of weather to worry about. It looks like the ones that are in play for this slate are this Yankees game. That's the first one up. Right now, just eyeballing it out the window. If I had tickets, I'd definitely be going. Roth is saying basically light rain throughout, but probably enough that they'll just play through. But obviously that's him just, guessing. But doesn't seem too threatened. Seems like that's a game they'll get in. Houston at Cleveland has orange-yellow on his board. Wind blowing in from, winds right to left. What? Winds right to left at in from, that's got to be a typo, and in from right. So it's going right to left and in from right field all at the same time. 15 to 20 mile an hour wind gusts in Cleveland and some rain in the area. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on and could potentially favor some pitching. Still got some good hitting marks in that one. I actually didn't realize about the wind blowing in before I made Ramirez the home run pick of the day. I'll stand by it. I don't really mind the wind that much. And then weather in Atlanta. Seems like Roth was just earlier in the day speculating that maybe they would have power loss or something from the storm, but seems fine. No rain in the area, it seems like. So first up, the Pirates and the Yanks, a 7.5 run total there. Pretty decent pitching matchup. It's Carlos Rodon going for the Yankees against a fairly high strikeout Pirates team. He actually projects out as the top pitcher on the slate, which never really makes me comfortable. But overall, he's pitched fairly well this season, and there are plenty of Ks on the table for him there. Jared Jones going up against the Yanks. Went 4 2 starts ago, went 5 in his most recent one. Had a 7-inning start since jumping back into the rotation, a 6+ inning start. So full expectations that he's going to be basically unleashed in his last start of the season here. I don't think there's really going to be a restriction on it. The 5-inning game, he gave up 6 earned runs, but he's got a lot of strikeout potential. There are Ks in that Yankees lineup. High danger spot, but I think Jared Jones is playable against the Yanks. 4.26 implied total for New York, a 3.32 implied total for Pittsburgh against Rodon. Jose Barrios on the mound for the Blue Jays. He's got the Marlins checked down to just 3.47 implied runs. Coming back the other way, Adam Oller, who we've gotten away with a couple of times at low pricing, just like a 5-inning decent strikeout, couple of runs kind of games. We might consider doing that again today. That Blue Jays lineup has a few more Ks in it, but Oller didn't really project out well in this spot, and there's a lot of really cheap pitching to get to today. So we probably don't need him, but I think he might be a little bit more playable than that 5.14 implied total the Blue Jays are pulling in might dictate. That seems a little bit high. I'm not saying Oller's necessarily good, but he's also not bad. So that's a beefy total for a Blue Jays team that's been pretty underwhelming throughout the season. Astros and the Guardians, a 3.68 implied total for Houston. They're showing a decent amount of power on their side against Ronald Blanco. And then going back the other way, it's Joey Cantillo on the mound for Cleveland. I said that backward. Blanco's on the mound for Houston. Cleveland showing a good amount of power against Blanco. Going the other way, Astros showing a little bit of power going back against Joey Cantillo. I had to get in there and make sure that we had the numbers correct when I saw the initial number for Kyle Tucker's power. I gave Cantillo a little bit of a tick down so that Tucker wouldn't be at just an absurd number in the home run model, but he's still basically double the magic number. So a lot of power showing against Cantillo. He's given up 2 home runs in 3 different games in his short sample this season, but he hasn't given one up in his last 4 outings. So a little from column A, a little from column B. The Rays and the Red Sox. Reasonable game there. Nick Pivetta on the mound for the Red Sox. Gettable spot. Rays have plenty of strikeouts for him in that lineup. Pivetta, not the most trustworthy of pitchers, but definitely a decent strikeout option. So there could be some upside there. And Taj Bradley on the mound facing the somewhat diminished but still dangerous Red Sox lineup. No Rafi Devers, and there's no Tyler O'Neill in the Red Sox lineup today either against the young righty. Bradley is good. Does have decent strikeout stuff. There are Ks in that Red Sox lineup, so it is another spot where it's probably going to look like a both-sided situation. And we'll have to consider what the price fit for the strikeout upside is for Bradley. Royals and the Braves, a 3.27 implied total for the Royals. They're going up against Max Fried, who's a terrific pitcher for limiting runs, limiting home runs, limiting power output. Medium strikeout kind of a pitcher against a low strikeout team. Maybe not the biggest upside, biggest ceiling on the board, but Max is always good for 7 pretty clean innings. Brady Singer on the mound going the other way for the Royals, not quite so much. But a 4.32 implied total is not too bad against for Atlanta. It's just one of the better marks on this slate because there's a lot of low numbers. Singer's had a good year. He's gotten beat up in a couple of spots, but nothing too tragic. And he's had a lot of really strong starts through the season. So against the high strikeout Braves lineup, he's going to be playable. Dodgers at Coors Field to round out the season seems kind of unfair. 6.30 implied total for them. Mentioned before, Shohei Ohtani coming in at 8,000. I think he's 5,200 on the FanDuel slate. Very, very expensive, but it's the Dodgers at Coors Field going up against Cal Quantrill. And then the dawning of the age of Kasparius for the Dodgers. Ben Kasparius. I have no idea anything about this pitcher. Slated him for just a handful of innings. Limited pitch count. I don't think we're getting to too much there for Kasparius, but we'll give him a quick look. I do believe he's 4,000 on the DraftKings slate. 4.83, 4.84 implied total for the Rockies against. The Orioles against the Twins, a 3.63 implied total for Baltimore going up against Pablo Lopez, who can be an up-and-down kind of a pitcher. And then Cade Povich on the mound for Baltimore. He's been gettable. He is a talented young pitcher, but in his rookie season, he has had some blips. Last 2 starts have been pretty decent, though. 5 innings apiece, both against Detroit. 2 runs in each game. Struck out 8, struck out 7. Moderately comparable opponent, maybe, in that they can score some runs. The Twins are better, but I think there's approachable strikeout upside for Povich on the right day. He had a 10 strikeout game, 4 starts back against the White Sox, went 7 1/3. So it's another one we'll consider the price fit. And then Lopez, just playable, especially with the Orioles coming in at such a low total for that pretty decent offense, but that seems to be the case over and over again. This Orioles team was at low totals in Yankee Stadium all week long, and now they're in Minnesota at low totals. I think you can just kind of continue going back there. It's at worst a both-sided situation. Mets going up against Frankie Montas. They're pulling a 3.89 implied total. Montas got us for that big strikeout game 2 starts back. Came off that one, the 10 strikeout game that we discussed in a show where Blaine had him at a big strikeout total, and I did not. Blaine won that round. Came back the next one. We didn't talk about it for this one, but he faced Arizona. Again, it's always Arizona. They're so good. 2 2/3 in his most recent start. 7 earned runs, 6 hits, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, 3 home runs allowed. That's your downside with Frankie Montas. In the 10 strikeout game prior to that, he also gave up 2 home runs. So that's 5 home runs allowed over his last 2. Seems like a somewhat targetable pitcher. Mets bats, decent upside for home run power, decent upside for limiting strikeouts, creating runs. Sean Manaea on the hill for the Mets looks pretty decent against the Brewers. He's got them down just a 3.70 implied total. There is strikeout upside for Manaea. He's been working into the 7th inning for 8 straight starts. He's gone into the 7th. He's only one of them has he missed the quality start. He's got 6+ strikeouts in I don't even know. Jeez. Because I just realized that it goes back outside of a 3 inning blip. There were also 2 more 7 inning starts before that in which he struck out 11 and 10. He's been really good down the stretch. So I think we consider Manaea against even still a pretty good Brewers lineup. You can see what Vegas thinks of that spot. Rangers and the Angels, a 3.88 implied total for Texas. They're going up against Reed Detmers, another pretty talented pitcher. He can also get nailed, though. His last 2 times out, 2 innings against Houston, 7 earned runs, home run, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks, 5 1/3 against the White Sox. Also gave up 7 earned runs, one of the White Sox best games of the season. But there are good games also if you go back the next to the 2 prior to those, both 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts against the Twins, 10 strikeouts against the Dodgers. There's a lot of upside with Reed Detmers if you catch him on the right day. For the Rangers, it's Jake DeGrom for however long we're going to get him. He went 3 in his most recent outing. He's faced Seattle twice, 3 2/3, struck out 4, and then 3 innings, faced 13 hitters, struck out 5, walked 1, gave up a solo home run and 3 hits. There's monster upside in the innings that he's going to pitch. It's just I don't know that we're going to get anything more than 3 innings, maybe 4. So you're very limited. You're not getting bonuses from him. Tank Dell status changed from questionable to out. That was expected. Pods and the D-backs. Interesting one there. It's Yu Darvish on the hill for the Pods and Merrill Kelly answering back on the other side. 2 mid-board kind of pitchers. Darvish in his most recent start faced the White Sox on the 22nd. He was pretty good. He struck out 9, went 6 1/3, 2-run game. Merrill Kelly on the 21st, 5 innings, 6 strikeout game against the Brewers. Both guys are capable of doing well. It's just 2 really good offenses in very key series here. So I don't know. I kind of lean a little bit away from the pitching, maybe expecting 5 innings of holding the other team to low runs, and then the teams do a little bit more scoring, maybe against the bullpens kind of a day. I can see both of these guys having good starts. I just don't know that they're good DFS starts, I guess is what I'm trying to say. A's and the Mariners, I have a feeling Brian Wu has a pretty good DFS start. Tons of upside there for him against a gettable enough A's lineup. I know the A's have been better. We've talked about them a ton. We've used them a fair amount of the time throughout the second half of the season, but I really like Brian Wu's upside on the right day. 6 innings last time out. He did give up 4 earned runs to Texas. He struck out just 4. 4 2/3 the start before that. 7 earned runs, but struck out 7 against the Yankees. Had a good start against the Pods. Against the last time he faced this Oakland team, 2 earned runs. He struck out 6 over 5 innings. Very talented pitcher and doesn't get himself into any kind of trouble. You can see what Vegas thinks of the A's today. 3.35 implied total, one of the lowest on the board. And then the Mariners, decent upside for them. They're facing J.P. Sears, but Sears, we know that we can work with Sears from time to time, and that has been one of the more targetable matchups in baseball basically all season long. Mariners have been a little bit better down the stretch here, but they're still very gettable. Sears has some strikeout stuff, 6 Ks against the Yankees over 5 innings in his last start. He gave up 6 runs in that game, of course. Had a 9 strikeout game against the Giants back on August 18th. Another 9 strikeout game also against the Giants. Likes pitching against that team. So there is potential, maybe sneaky, cheap, low-owned upside in Sears. Mariners pulling a 4.23 against. It's not exactly intimidating, but it is one of the more playable marks on the slate as well. Rounding things out, Miles Michaelis going for the Cards. Landon Roop going for the Giants. Roop has been really good in his limited action at not allowing home runs. He's allowed one in his 46 and 2/3 against 195 hitters. So he's having a fairly dramatic impact through the home run model. Evan Engram status also changed to out. He's having a fairly dramatic impact on the Cardinals' home run numbers, which is fine. I mean, the Cards aren't big home run hitters anyway. This Giants ballpark is fairly good for suppressing power anyway. So I'm all right with where he lands. He just looks okay, though, as far as playability for DFS. 336 implied total for the Cardinals, though, reflective of the nature of that game environment. A late September game in San Francisco with a pitcher who doesn't allow a lot of power against is kind of draining as far as the run total goes. And then Miles Michaelis, just a pitch to contact kind of a pitcher, but another pitcher who isn't terrible for power and earned runs against most of the time. Although he has 5 straight games of allowing a home run. He also had a game earlier this season where he allowed 4 home runs. That was against the Cubs. Had a 9 earned run game earlier in the season. Miles Michaelis is targetable. I don't hate that spot for Giants bats as like a late night. It's not a late night hammer because they're only at a 3.72 implied total. But I don't completely hate that. There's some usable pieces in that Giants lineup, and it's probably not going to be that popular. Looking at how the slate actually stacks up pitching-wise. Again, Rodon all the way up at the top with believable strikeout upside. We know that Rodon can come out and even against the worst teams disappoint. He just has that in him. But I'm comfy paying 10-6, 9-3 for him, especially. He's reasonably priced on DraftKings. You can see there's a really broad range of very nicely priced pitchers. So there's a lot to work with on the DK board. Even the price on Pablo Lopez, not unreasonable at 88. So definitely plenty of directions to go. If you don't want to pay for Rodon at 93, you've got options that are cheaper. You've got options that are a little bit more expensive. Max Fried at 94 against KC. I don't totally buy that there's more upside there than there is for Rodon, but he's probably going to be lower owned in that spot and have, a relatively similar ceiling. Similar thing for Ronel Blanco against Cleveland. Pitcher that I continue to think just basically all year has pitched above his head, but has gotten away with it for most of his outings. Just a really good Guardians lineup that is low strikeout, but we do have the win to contend with there that's on the pitcher's side. So believable enough upside that you can mix in a lower-owned Ronel Blanco as an alternative to Rodon. But I like all these guys kind of better than those two pitchers. Wu, again, looks like a tremendous spot at 87-84 against a gettable Athletics team. Nick Pivetta, definitely upside there for K's, especially at 7,900. That's extremely cheap for a spot against the Rays for a pitcher like that. Pablo Lopez, just a tough, challenging matchup against the Orioles, but you get a little bit of a matchup discount at 88 on DraftKings. 94 on FanDuel, I don't love. I'd much rather have Wu for 87. I'd rather have Pivetta for 93. Maybe some of the other options. Manaea, definitely interesting, 99, and especially at 87 on DraftKings. That's just too low. That hasn't caught up to how good he's been down the stretch. Challenging spot against the Brewers, no doubt about it, playoff team, but Manaea's been good enough to beat them and have a very good DFS day against them. DeGrom, I think we're just coming in. It's yet another day where not necessarily mispriced because he is capable of giving you right around these medians in just 4 innings. But there's really not much ceiling on it. If he goes 4, you're not getting any of your bonuses. If he goes 4, maybe he does strike out enough to get you to 15 DK points, 30 FanDuel points, but that's not going to be enough. And not where he's priced. If he came in, if they had dropped him into the slate in a Frankie Montas price even, then it's only 300 cheaper on FanDuel. But you get me. If they had dropped him into the slate like a little bit cheaper, it would be a spot where that's enough strikeout upside and playability that you can kind of forgo the bonus. I don't know that that's the case at 81, 84. It feels still kind of hefty. It's Jake DeGrom. If he happened to come out and go 5 just because, then you'd have a significant amount of upside. Very gettable Angels lineup for him. He could come away with 4 innings and, 8 strikeouts. But he could also give up a couple of runs. He's not exactly at peak form. Taj Bradley, definitely strikeouts available in that Boston lineup for him. So 8,300, that's a really good price on DraftKings. 9,000, you can pay that. He is playable on FanDuel, but there are just a lot of other spots to work with. I don't love it on FanDuel. I like it a lot at 83 as a mixer on the two-pitcher site. But he has tons of upside against the Marlins. But just, an average pitcher, a slightly above average pitcher. I'm not going to suddenly stop saying that just because he's facing the Marlins. He's exceptionally high priced for his talent level. Fried just facing a low strikeout Royals lineup. I don't like the matchup. I love the pitcher. Jared Jones against the Yanks could definitely envision some success there on a Friday night. I think it's the first time he's pitching in Yankee Stadium as well. Kid's been good throughout the season. High strikeout, plenty of Ks in that Yankees lineup. Just, again, very dangerous spot, but 88, 86, it's worth playing. Sears at 76, 72. This is what I'm talking about when I say that he's playable today. For one, he projects out just kind of into the middle of the board. There is no real daylight between him and even Brian Wu up at the top. What are we talking about? 2 points? Less than a strikeout? So everybody is in play that comes down, down through Detmers. So, pick your price point. Singer at 85, 82 is not terrible. Even Kelly. Montas, you could argue for, based on 10 strikeouts a couple games ago. I'm not into the Montas play. I'm not a believer. But you could at least argue it for price. There's a lot of directions to go on this slate. Not many, true aces. Apologies, obviously, DeGrom, Rodon for previous quality, Darvish for previous quality. But right now, current form, I don't know that anybody's necessarily top end, top shelf type pitcher. But this is a big open bar of pitching from the next shelf down through the bottom shelf. There's a lot to work with. So yeah, Sears 76, 72. There's a pretty good shot that JP Sears ends up being my FanDuel pitcher at that price. Blanco just hate the matchup 91, 96. Darvish hate the matchup 93, 86. Detmers I'm back in 79, 68, especially at 68 on DraftKings. You could build lineups with JP Sears and Reed Detmers paired at 72 and 68, and I would absolutely not call you crazy. That is an interesting angle into the DraftKings slate. Singer against Atlanta. Again, definitely strikeouts there, just a little bit more high price than basically everybody else that surrounds him. Kelly, very low strikeout, very dangerous opponent. Montas, dangerous opponent. A lot of home run upside for the Mets, but maybe playable. Michaelis at 69.55 especially, probably playable at worst on DraftKings, especially if you're just chasing some clean innings and a bonus. That said, he is extremely targetable, and I kind of land a little bit more on the Giants side of that one, but good pitching conditions in San Francisco and extremely, extremely cheap for potential innings. If he gives you his last start, last time out he faced Cleveland, a much lower strikeout team, I'll add, than the Giants. He went 6, struck out 4, 1 earned run, 4 hits. It's a quality start. He got the win. You'd love more Ks, and maybe the Giants give him 1 additional strikeout, 2 additional strikeouts. Probably not. You're probably getting 4.5 strikeouts. But there's upside for 55, 69. Hell, for a $700 discount, I would consider that over JP Sears, honestly, on the FanDuel slate. You're obviously dealing with a projection gap. Miles Michaelis is never going to hit a peak projection. But it's a really good matchup for him to find a peak game. Cantillo really just looks like a target for Astros bats to me. Landon Roop just looks like somebody who might suck the power out of the other team, but not necessarily give up or not necessarily post a huge game here at 7,077. Just kind of an awkward price fit on DraftKings too, with so many cheaper options. Adam Oller, again, we'll look at the price. We've gotten away with it a couple times, but we might have some better, more likely get away with kind of options above him. Povich against the Twins, kind of a no, but 63. It is a throwable dart on DK. Quantrill, this is where I'm drawing the line. I'm not playing the Coors Field pitchers on this slate. Even at 4,000, Kasparius, whatever it is, it just doesn't look right. But basically everyone else, I can at least make an argument for playing. Big, deep slate. See, we got the Pirates lineup as we get started here. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Our guys over at Ace Mine could use your love. If you're looking for something to create new lineups now that certain companies just can't seem to get their act together and get their websites back online. Maybe you're in the market for an optimizer. Maybe you're in the market for an optimizer that feeds directly into a great sim tool. Also comes at the cheapest price in the industry. Least expensive price in the industry, not cheapest. Cheap implies low quality. These guys aren't giving you low quality. Not only is the product good, not only are we using it on shows and behind the scenes here, but the guys are shockingly responsive to anything that you need customer service-wise. They're just on top of things over there. So really encourage you to check out acemind.io. Promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, get you 20% off your first month. And if you're here for the football show tomorrow, we'll definitely take a look at some Rotoscout. We'll definitely take a look at some Rotoscout stuff. But we'll also take a look at some AceMind stuff for the main slate tomorrow. So the Pirates check in against Carlos Rodon, top-end pitcher in the first game. He comes up with a 26.6% strikeout rate this year, 3.98 ERA with a 4.06 xFIP. It's honestly been kind of an underappreciated season out of Rodon. He had a nice bounce back from the meltdown year that he had last year. He's gotten through 31 starts and 169 and 2/3. A 14% swinging strike rate is looking kind of like the Carlos Rodon of old. The 28.4% CSW could honestly be quite a bit higher against that 14% swinging, but I'll take it. It's been effective. That's probably the difference, him with two more points of called strikes, probably the difference between getting back to a 30% strikeout rate, but I'll take it. It's been effective. He has been a little bit vulnerable to the long ball. He's 4+% home runs, totally believable. He is a fly ball trajectory pitcher. He is a pitcher who works in Yankee Stadium for half of his games. 10+% barrels, 40+% hard hits, 90+ miles an hour of exit velo. We're over the threshold in all three of our key metrics there. But it's a Pirates team that is not exactly elite at crushing the ball out of the park. They do have a few guys who hit the ball extremely hard. One of them in the lineup tonight, so we don't have to worry about O'Neill Cruz against the lefty, which is a bonus. It's an entirely right-handed lineup in Yankee Stadium, which is not a good plan. Poor Pirates. You deserve better. It's a great spot for Carlos Rodon. You can see 25.6% strikeout rate for the opponents. He's got a 26.6. Maths out to the highest projected spot on the board. Just a matter of whether you want to pay for him on a day where there are extremely cheap, very competitive options. Jared Jones is one of those options on the other side, 86, 88. He doesn't project exactly the same. There's obviously a difference between those two marks, but he's significantly cheaper. He comes in with a 25.8% strikeout rate against the Yankees team with a 21-2 for this confirmed version of the lineup. Yanks giving a few players a day off here. Looking down the Yankees lineup, that could definitely help the upside for Jared Jones. Yanks clinched the division win. Still chasing the best overall record in the AL, I believe. But clinched the division. So we've got Soto. We've got no Judge in the lineup. We've got a lineup that the bottom of it is from 5 down, Verdugo, Volpe, Trent Grisham, Jose Trevino, and Ozzy Cabrera. Bump to Jared Jones. This is a really gettable version of the Yankees. 86-88 is a great price to find him. 4.14 ERA at 3.86 xFIP on the season. You can see how much Stuff Plus loves the arsenal. Kid's got fantastic stuff. 10.1% barrels, 44.5% hard hits, nearly 90 miles an hour of exit velo. Totally believable, but that's as high as it is and probably could be a little bit higher. A little bit lucky to limit a few home runs along the way there. And this top end of the Yankees lineup, at the very least, definitely knows how to go find those home runs. So he is still in a little bit of danger, but it's a lot less danger than if you were facing Stanton and Judge and the full version of the Yankees lineup. So little reprieve here for Jared Jones. I like the spot quite a bit. Pirates lineup against Rodon doesn't look all that playable. You're kind of dealing with a lot of, just dink and dunk kind of righties. Nick Gonzalez off the top spot, 3,500, 2,800 is fairly non-threatening. 271, 311, 386, 91 WRC plus. Righty bat, multi-position eligible in the infield for a cheap price. You could throw him in there just on the idea of a few plate appearances to correlate directly to the hitters that you want in this lineup if you are stacking Pirates. But it seems like a low-end overall stacking spot. Brian Reynolds is their key bat if you're going to this team. 5,000, 3,100, 22 home runs and 10 stolen bases on the season. A better hitter for power from the left side and would be better in this situation from the left side against a righty. He'll get the opportunity to switch over once they go to the bullpen and maybe target the short porch for a plate appearance. But he's definitely their top priority hitter. Joey Bart looks like a reasonable power option from the right side. 3,700, 2,900, pretty cheap at the catcher spot, hitting third today. 9.7% barrels, 9.03 in the home run model to lead this team. 13 home runs and 274 plate appearances on the season, a 200 ISO. Finally turned into the Joey Bart that was expected. Just took him a second organization to get there, but clearly is earning a job for, go forward. McCutchen just 41, 29, 20 home runs, a 180 ISO, 107 WRC plus. Still can get himself to first base if nothing else. Strikes out a little bit more, walks a little bit less, but a 331 on base is very effective. Still can hit the ball hard. Definitely a danger bat from the right side for Carlos Rodon. Brian De La Cruz also hits the ball hard from the right side. 9.3% barrels, 41.1% hard hits. Strikes out a lot. So does McCutch. So does Joey Bart. So does Brian Reynolds. There are a couple decent walk rates in there that Rodon's going to have to get around, but he hasn't been bad for walks at just 7.4% this year. De La Cruz, reasonable power play, though. There is a little stretch of power right there for the Pirates. That's basically your stack if you're going to this team. De La Cruz has 21 home runs, a 151 ISO. He's just okay. IKF, 4,000, 2,700. He's playable because he hits for average, so he's putting balls in play, 15.4% strikeouts and 3.3% walks, but he's not exactly hitting the ball hard. 2.3% barrels, 29.3% hard hits. I like him when he's a little bit better anyway, when he's hitting leadoff at just a cheap price with multi-position. Hitting 6, kind of irrelevant. He just becomes a correlated scoring play more with these guys. It's not a likely spot where he's going to be the guy driving all these guys in. I mean, it's possible. It's not off the board, but it's limited. Connor Joe, 3,000, 2,400. Success over time against lefties in his limited action overall, but just kind of an okay player overall. 9 home runs and 414 plate appearances, a 140 ISO. Nick York, 29-25, hasn't given us much over 30 plate appearances. Does have a home run and 2 stolen bases on the board, though, but just an 83 WRC+, just a 111 ISO. Mix and match your way at second base, and outfield. And then Billy Cook, 23-26, has 2 home runs so far and a stolen base in 38 plate appearances, 184 ISO. Another guy, mix and match for a cheap price against a very high-end pitcher. So for this ugly Yankees lineup, Gleyber remains very playable up top and honestly becomes a priority if you decide to go to the Yankees here. It's not a great spot to be stacking Yankees, though. If I was updating the stacks board, I would knock them down a peg or two. But Gleyber at 42-28 does fill second base very, very effectively. 15 home runs on the season, a 102 WRC+, a 328 on base, hitting ahead of Soto. Still a good stretch of hitters behind him. It's just not Soto and Judge. It's Soto, Jazz Chisholm, Jason Dominguez. Still not bad. Definitely makes the Yankees stack cheaper to play. Now you can get the top 4 on the Yankees on FanDuel for $3,400 a piece, including Soto. It's a $1,000 discount on Juan Soto. For $64.44, he's definitely in play. He's slashing 288, 418, 572 with a 284 ISO, 41 home runs, a 180 WRC+. He's absolutely terrific. Chisholm, third base only for 53. That's perfectly fine. That's where I would want him on DraftKings anyway because I'm putting Gleyber at second base if I'm stacking this team. Eligible at 3 spots on FanDuel. Helps out, 3,500. Good multi-category contributor, 23 homers, 38 steals, a 106 WRC+, 173 ISO's just okay, but a good lefty bat in Yankee Stadium. Lefty to start things off, followed by the switch hitter, followed by another lefty who's not at all good in Alex Verdugo. Hit an empty home run for his 13th of the year last night when they were already up 9-0. Dominguez in his limited appearances so far, 2 home runs, 5 stolen bases, but just 191, 296, 340. Looking to really get him engaged before the playoffs start. Let him learn how to play left field at Yankee Stadium before the playoffs start as well. He's had some struggles out there. But the thing to point to there is just the barrel rate, the hard hits so far, right where you'd want him. No issues going to him. If you're going to the Yankees, you're absolutely including a cheap Jason Dominguez. And then everybody else gets very, very skippable. Verdugo, as mentioned, bad. Not making good contact. Doesn't really strike out. Doesn't really walk that much, but it's just weak contact. Tons of weak contact. A lot of flyouts. 125 ISO, 15 points below average for run creation. Volpe comes in 13 points below. He's got 12 home runs and 27 steals in another unimpressive season over 680 plate appearances. Very limited in terms of putting bat on ball. We're back up to 22.6% strikeouts now. Trent Grisham strikes out 26% of the time. He has hit the ball hard this year. 11.4% barrels, 45.5% hard hits. It's resulted in 8 home runs with a 187 ISO over 201 plate appearances. If you want one bonus sneaky bat from the bottom of the Yankees, it's probably Trent Grisham, but I really don't think that much of this hitter. He's just cheap. Jose Trevino, mix and match quality catcher at the absolute best. He's hit 8 home runs, but he's not much of a bat. He's a much better defensive catcher. And then Oswald Cabrera is just a multi-position infielder. 5 positions on FanDuel for 24 has its value. 2,800 first base, third base, not ideal positioning on DraftKings. 8 home runs in 318 plate appearances. If you remember all the way back at the beginning of the season, he hit like 3 of those in the first 2 weeks of the season. And people were like, oh my God, he's going to be good. Nope. 88 WRC plus. This goes Carlos Rodon, Jared Jones, just barely Yankees bats and then Pirates bats, but Yanks not looking too good here. We got the lineup in for the Fish. Looks about like expected. So, as I've been saying all season long, Jose Barrios, I really don't think is all that much better than a average pitcher. Numbers kind of back it up this season. 3.38 ERA, but a 4.24 xFIP, sub 20% strikeout rate, a 6.6% walk rate, limited swinging strikes in CSW. He's given up a lot of premium contact and power, 41.8% hard hits, 89.5 miles an hour of exit velo, a 3.91% home run rate, 8 points below average by Stuff Plus metrics. Just doesn't add up to a $10,000 pitcher most of the time. He is capable of snapping off a good start, but that's what makes you an average pitcher. If you weren't capable of doing that, you'd be a bad pitcher. He does pitch deep into games. I'll absolutely give him that much. 189 in the third and 31 starts this year. On a decent run. He's had a strong 2 months. Has not given up more than 3 earned runs in a game since a 5-run game on August 3rd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games where he completed 7 innings. The other 3, he's gone at least 6. Quality start in every single one of them. Handful of strikeouts. Low was 4, high was 8 in that stretch. Most games were at 5. It's a very good stretch of pitching. No arguing with it. That's why he's got a 3.38 ERA. I don't like this pitcher. I really don't think it's a good spot. And similar numbers from last year. 3.65 ERA last year, but the strikeouts were a lot better, 23.5%. Year before, 19.8%, had a 5.23 ERA with a 4.21 xFIP. This is when he gets exposed with a little bit of misfortune rather than a little bit of good fortune. So again, I continue to think that this is the true version maybe, minus the strikeout upside. It is a great spot. I mean, it's the Marlins on the other side. I'm not in any way taking Jose Barrios off the board. I just think he's going to get overpopular. He's very expensive. $10,000 on FanDuel, $9,000 on DraftKings within a day where there's a lot of options. More than talented enough to put up a big day against this Marlins team. 24.7% strikeouts for the opposing lineup. They've been largely inept all season. They do have 4 positive run creators and then 299 WRC plus guys in the top 6 there. So basically the whole top 6 is at or around or above league average for run creation this season. The bottom end obviously drops off significantly. There's a couple high strikeout guys up toward the top, but there's also a couple productive low strikeout options. You could get the idea in some ways that on the right day, this Marlins team is a little bit better than their reputation might suggest. There are a couple few guys in here with very low strikeout rates to help offset some of the very high strikeout rates. You've got some interesting true power bats. Even Kyle Stowers could get thrown into that mix just based on the contact quality. So it's easy enough to envision the downside at what I'm sure is going to be high ownership for Jose Barrios. On the other side, Adam Oller, 66.72, comes in with a 20.1% strikeout rate, a 5.06 ERA with a 5.08 xFIP. He's walked 12.2%. Nothing appealing about those numbers. But again, we've gotten there a couple times recently with him. Against Atlanta, his last time out, 5 2/3. He struck out 7. He walked 2. He gave up 2 earned runs with a home run, allowed 8 hits. Start before that, 3 earned runs in 5 innings. He struck out just 2. That was a limited outing. 6 earned runs in 5 innings against Pittsburgh was a disaster outing on the 10th. But going back 2 starts prior to that, he faced the Giants. This was the main one that I'm thinking of that we had him on August 30th. 2 hits over 6 innings, struck out 8, walked 2. Start before that, he had gone 5 2/3 against the Cubs, struck out 6, just 1 earned run on 4 hits, which was what had given us faith for the start on the 30th. There's a lot of downside with this pitcher, but he is capable enough of suppressing at least runs from this Blue Jays team. What you're probably not in line for, though, is one of those higher strikeout games. Atlanta's got a lot of Ks in the lineup. The Giants got a lot of Ks. The Cubs against a righty have a fair amount. Philly, he struck out 6, but he gave up 4 earned runs. This Blue Jays team at just 18.2% with some significantly low strikeout guys in the lineup doesn't look like a great spot to roll the Aller dice on a deep slate with comparably priced pitchers. Can do, but probably shouldn't. On the Marlins side, if you choose to stack them up against Jose Barrios, Xavier Edwards off the top, 45-29, reasonable option to get things rolling. 288 very productive plate appearances for Xavier Edwards. Got some speed, got some good run creation ability, slashing 319, 390, 390, creating runs 19% better than average, 31 steals and 288 chances. He's been really, really good. Fits in at shortstop at a fair price. It's not as far as like your next tier shortstops go, a guy who's been this productive and has the reputation for putting good bat on ball, having a good eye at the plate, getting to first base. That's a productive enough way to fill shortstop for those prices. Connor Noybe hitting the ball significantly hard, 15.2% barrels. He's got 9 home runs and 179 chances, a 221 ISO. Mediocre slash line so far, but a positive run creator. We'll take it. If we're stacking Marlins, we got to take the best that we can. 33% strikeouts is a problem, but we're just looking for that quality bat on ball. Second base eligibility on FanDuel is nice for 3,000. Third base on DraftKings, not problematic at 43. Jake Berger has the best true home run upside, 11.99 in the home run model today. 29 homers on the season, looking for number 30. 213 ISO, excellent contact marks. Another fairly high strikeout, low walk hitter. That's just who Jake Berger is. He could be a strikeout target for Jose Barrios, but he could also be somebody who exploits all this premium contact and power that Jose Barrios can allow. So I don't dislike that, and you guys know that I like Jesus Sanchez in the next spot. Sanchez over 524 plate appearances. This is not a terrible season. We're at 251, 310, 418, 18 home runs, 15 steals. It could definitely be better. If you give him another 150 plate appearances, though, we'd probably be 20-20. 167 ISO needs to improve and is not at all reflective of that kind of contact that he's made throughout his still young career. 3,300, 2,800 for a lefty bat in the outfield hitting cleanup behind the 3 players that I would actually want to go with him. It's definite if you're going to the Marlins that you include Jesus Sanchez. It's no question about it. Jonah Bride, 31. Griff Conine, 29. Those are your next 2 options on DraftKings. Those are your 2 most likely 5th men in on a stack. Fortunately, on FanDuel, you don't have to worry about it. You just take the top 4 and run with it. But if you're building a lot of Marlin stacks, you can definitely get into this territory. Favorite bat from down here probably is Stowers, just based on this quality of contact. But Conine's also made good contact so far. 9.1% barrels, 43.2% hard hits. It's resulted in 2 home runs, just a 159 ISO and 76 plate appearances. But maybe there's a little something there from the left side. Jonah Bride has 9 homers, a 114 WRC+. He's been a productive bat for them, so for the money, you can go to him at first base, but that's a positional conflict with Jake Berger on DK, so not doable. Otto Lopez for 3,200, mix and match quality. He's got 4 positions on FanDuel, but just second base on DraftKings, not ideal. Has stolen 20 bases to go with his 6 home runs. He's got an okay slash line, but 87 WRC+ this season. Stowers, as mentioned, tons of premium contact. Over 205 chances, it's resulted in a 209, 259, 335 with a 126 ISO, a 64 WRC+, and just 3 home runs. So if he's going to do anything for us this season, he's going to have to do it in an awful hurry. But starting it out at 2,500 from as the last man in a Marlin stack today, plays okay in conjunction with that's kind of a big stretch there, but going back around the other way maybe. Or maybe you're just picking off, the 5th man as just whatever he does from the bottom. He hits a home run that drives in these guys. You don't worry about it. You just take your points. Nick Fortes at the bottom of the lineup is an entirely skippable catcher, even though he's cheap. 4 home runs and 326 plate appearances. Nothing to really like there. On the Blue Jays side, George Springer back in the lineup at just 4,200, 3,000 after a day off. He's got 19 home runs, 15 steals, and 94 WRC plus in a really disappointing season for a mid-30s aging player. Might have just completely lost it, and it might never come back. We will find out next year, but there are counting stats available there. He's gotten very, very cheap. Still does only strike out 18.8% of the time. He still draws his walks 9.6%. Going up against a guy with a 12.2% walk rate, you can see where the big total's coming from for the Blue Jays. All four of those top hitters are in double-digit walk rates if you round up with George Springer. Alejandro Kirk not far behind at 9%. It's going to be a problematic matchup at the top for Adam Oller. So Springer's an okay way to start a Blue Jays stack. They're definitely in play today. They're probably going to get popular given that run total. Nathan Luke's at 36.29. They're also very cheap, by the way. Luke's 294, 363, 397. Creator runs 17% better than average over his first 82. Just a contact and on-base hitter, but very, very low strikeout. High walk, 9.8% strikeouts, 11% walks so far. Definitely an interesting bat. Vladdy Guerrero is the absolute top priority. You don't really stack Blue Jays without including him. 30 home runs, 224 ISO, 167 WRC plus this year. It's been absolutely fantastic. A 398 on base, 102 ribbies. It's Vladdy Guerrero. You don't think about it. You just put him in your lineup. Harwitz, unfortunately, on DraftKings continues to be a positional conflict with Vladdy. 3,700. If you want justification for skipping Vlad Guerrero in like your 10th Blue Jays stack on DraftKings, that would be it. Because I want to grab a Harwitz share. Because he is good. 3,700, you do get a nice $1,500 discount for doing it. They're nowhere near the same player. But Harwitz is very good at getting to first base. 359 on base so far. He's created runs 30% better than average in a half a season. Low strikeout, high walk. Very interesting hitter against this pitcher, too. On FanDuel, you get him in second base. Perfectly fine. You can put him at util, do whatever you want. He's only 2,800. He's very interesting over there. Those top four hitters would be my top four priority on the Blue Jays stack, just straight off the top. I can skip Alejandro Kirk, but on DraftKings, you could consider him at just 33. He does have a 40% hard hit rate, 6.9% barrels. It results in just 5 home runs, just a 108 ISO. He's not good, but every now and then he can put good bat on ball, and he's low strikeout, decently high walk to correlate with those top guys. Addison Barger, a 5+ in the home run model. He's got 7, but he's also at the Mendoza line and at a 251 on base with a 72 WRC+. Just a mix and match quality player. Ernie Clement, you get tons of bat on ball, 9.1% Ks and 2.3% walks. It's just that goes with 3.6% barrels and 24.3% hard hits. So a lot of just little light hits into the outfield. If they drop, you get a little Dying Quail, a little dink and dunk. As Crash Davis said, what was that? I just saw an announcement about Luis Rivera, and I don't think it's going to make me happy. Did they put him on the IL for the last, 4 days of the season? Those assholes. I knew I should have started Victor Robles or Giancarlo Stanton. Hang on. Not in Friday's lineup due to soreness in the rib cage. All right, they say he could be back on Saturday. So I guess it was just a status change to day-to-day. By the way, if you're in season long, Yahoo has extended the season to include the Monday action. That should be a lot of fun. What's up, Jazz G Money? What pitchers we rocking with? This is one of the deeper pitching slates, at least of the second half. This is a very, very deep pitching slate. I talked about it to start the show. I try and do it at the beginning, then at the end, and then talk about it all the way through. But the only pitchers really that I would rule out for this slate completely are the guys at Coors Field. I think everybody else is at least an argument to be in play. A lot of better spots than bad spots. An obvious one could be Jose Barrios against these Marlins, but I'm not fully endorsing taking the other side of that, but if he gets super popular, I could easily walk away from Jose Barrios. I've done it 1,000 times, never really regret it. Every now and then, again, he is capable of a monster start, and he's been on a very good run in the second half. Let's see what this ownership looks like, and then we'll get back to that lineup. Wow. All right. I am changing my opinion if RG is at all correct about Jose Barrios' ownership in this spot, you should absolutely be loading up on Jose Barrios. I still don't really like the pitcher, but even if he wasn't on this current run, he's owned in the mid-single digits according to their numbers on DK at 9,000 against the Marlins. Again, it's a deep pitching slate with Sean Manaea at 87 is more highly owned. Brian Wu at 84. There's tons and tons of options today that are reasonably priced, but I just thought Jose Barrios would, against the Marlins for the matchup for 9,000, I thought would draw a ton of popularity. I'm surprised. If he's sub 10, I think that would be a little surprising, but that definitely makes him more playable than I thought he'd be. I thought he was going to be pushing up into the high teens. For 10,000 on FanDuel, now I'm curious. Even lower ownership on FanDuel, as one would expect for 10,000. That makes sense to me. Lower mid-single digits on the FanDuel slate ownership-wise because he's significantly more expensive than everybody not named Carlos Rodon. But I am surprised by the DraftKings price. Jose Barrios just got more playable, or at least I got more enthusiastic about the ability to play Jose Barrios. Continuing with the Blue Jays, though, I was on Ernie Clement. So, again, just low strikeout, very low strikeout, tons of balls in play. He's cheap. He fills multiple positions on FanDuel. Just shortstop is really not ideal for Ernie Clement at 3,400 on DraftKings, though. You really don't want to do that. Jonathan Clase hit his first home run the other day. 3 stolen bases on the board, a 99 WRC plus in 57 plate appearances, a mix and match outfielder. And Leo Jimenez, to round things off, does have 4 home runs and 207 chances so far, but just a 131 ISO and a 28.5% strikeout rate. Another guy just kind of mix and match for cheap prices in the infield. This goes a lot more enthusiastically about Jose Barrios up at the top now, then the Blue Jays bats, then the Marlins bats, and then and only then Adam Oller. I really don't think you need to get to Oller, but I do think he's loosely playable just on the idea of maybe finding a few clean innings against an underperforming, underwhelming Blue Jays team. Just limited for strikeouts. Stros, lineup is in. I'm going to have to talk a lot faster. Been meandering through the beginning of the show. Ronel Blanco, 96-91, 24.7% strikeout rate. But as mentioned, I continue to think, and the numbers back me up on this, this is a pitcher pitching way over his head and just having a good year. 2.88 ERA looks dynamite, but a 4.10 xFIP, a 10% walk rate. Are we really calling a pitcher with a 10% walk rate a really strong option? 13.2% swinging, 28.5% CSW. He's given up a moderate amount of power and home runs. 3.34% home run rate is not nothing. 9.3% barrels. 36% hard hits and 88.7 miles an hour of exit velo are fine. But that does still make you a gettable pitcher on this kind of fly ball trajectory. So love the upside for home runs, even with the wind doing funky things in Cleveland tonight. Picked Naylor as the from the team pick because he's at 12.22. Picked Jose Ramirez as the home run pick of the day because I really, really want to see him get to 40 in a season where Judge is doing what he's doing, Shohei's doing what he's doing. Jose Ramirez under discussed that he's chasing 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases, and 40 doubles. He's already at 40 steals. He's got 38 home runs, 38 doubles. Going to need to have a big weekend to get there, but it's a player that can do it. Just a monster year at Jose Ramirez. Good matchup against Blanco here. I really don't like Blanco at 96-91. I think he's playable. I don't think you're crazy to do it. I wouldn't even tell you were wrong to do it. It's just not a good matchup. So on a deep, deep slate, why do you draw with a high-priced Ronel Blanco? He's earned those prices on the surface numbers, but the under-the-covers numbers tell me that he is not a $9,600 pitcher. He is not a $9,100 pitcher. And not against a low strikeout, playoff-bound, really, really good Guardians offense. I just don't see it. On the other side, Cantillo, you can see, just kind of looks like a target. 4.63 ERA with a 3.64 xFIP. He's given up 4.20% home runs so far on 41.9% hard hits, 89 miles an hour of exit velo. Has induced a 12.6% swinging strike rate, does have nearly a 26% strikeout rate, but 9.1% walks going up against an Astros team that is just very, very good. Very, very low strikeout. Has guys that can draw their walks, has some guys with absurd power. Kyle Tucker now doubling the magic number in the home run model. You've also got Alex Bregman there. No Jordan Alvarez, unfortunately, but still very high-end options with Jose Altuve and Jainer Diaz. So it's still a good Astros lineup, even with a kind of diminished back end here. It doesn't exactly feed the upside for Cantillo. Last time out, he went 4 1/3, gave up 2 runs, 1 earned, struck out 6 against the Twins. It's a decent start, but it's too short. We need more. 5 innings against the Rays. 3 hits, no runs, 6 strikeouts. That's a playable DraftKings start, but 76, he's just kind of an awkward price fit at that number as far as that SP2 roll. So if you're going to roll the dice with an SP2, just use somebody cheaper with similar upside or more upside. Really don't see it for this pitcher against the Astros. 10 strikeout game over 7 innings against the White Sox. Obviously, there's upside there. Faced the Yankees back on August 21st. Gave up 7 earned in 4 innings, 2 home runs, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks. 5 2/3 of 3-run ball on 5 hits against the Twins to start before that. 2 home runs allowed, 2 strikeouts, 3 walks. Definitely has hit an uptick, but I mean, one of those was against the White Sox, one of them was against the Rays, and then he was more vulnerable in that start against the Twins despite a decent strikeout total. Just fire away with Astros bats if you want them. Altuve off the top has gotten cheap, 52.35, very affordable, 20 home runs, 22 steals. 143 ISO is a disappointing ISO for Jose Altuve, but maybe we're reaching that stage of the career where, the little man can't hit the ball quite as hard as he used to, but still amounts to 20 home runs. I'm perfectly fine with that, and he's slashing 293, 349, 436. He's creating runs 26% better than average. If the price continues to go down, I'll continue to just be a buyer on Jose Altuve at second base. Still one of the best ways to fill the position on either side. Kyle Tucker at 59, 4,023 home runs, 11 steals, and 329, 20-plus in the home run model. Alex Bregman pulled together a good Bregman season, 26 homers, 116 WRC+, plus, a 191 ISO, getting free agent buzz as a target for the Red Sox and a bunch of other teams. 13.7% strikeout rate, 7% walk rate this season. I like him to come right back and stay at the hot corner for Houston the rest of his career. Diaz at 43, 31, 16 home runs at 299, 324, 442 /9, 117 WRC+. Plus. Hits the ball very, very hard for a catcher who just remains cheap and has been all year. 4,300 where you need the position. Also has first base eligibility on DK. 31 on FanDuel. Totally playable. Caratini, I keep mentioning it. 40+% hard hits each of the last 3 years. Extremely cheap catcher and first base eligibility. Low strikeout hitter. A lot of very good contact, a lot of well-struck balls. 271, 337, 403. He's having a good backup catcher season over 264 plate appearances. 112 WRC+, plus, 7 long balls. Zach DeZenzo at 22, 2,000. He's a first baseman on DraftKings and a shortstop on FanDuel. That's unique. 1 home run on the board, 60 WRC plus and 55 plate appearances. If memory serves, does have decent numbers in the minors. Has managed an 8.8% barrel rate in the show so far, but 32.7% Ks could feed the upside for Joey Cantillo. Jake Myers, mix and match quality in the outfield at best. 13 homers, 11 steals from the veteran. Mauricio Dubon just fills infield positions at second base cheap. He's 5 position eligible on FanDuel for 25. 266, 293, 355. He's low strikeout, low walk, a lot of balls in play, but not particularly good, not particularly hard hit. So limited quality. Greg Kessinger, dead min on DraftKings. He's also a first baseman over there. 2 cheap first base options on this in this lineup. Uniquely 4 first base eligible players for the Astros today on a team where there's rarely 1 first base eligible player. On FanDuel, Kessinger is a dead min price shortstop, second baseman, or third baseman, so every infield spot except for first base. Over 17 plate appearances, he's slashing 0.59 or 0.0590 with a 0 ISO, no home runs, 0 RBIs, 0 stolen bases. He scored 2 runs somehow. And he's got a minus 86 WRC+, plus, which, not good. I guess he's drawn, 2 walks? 1 walk? Yeah, it's got to be 2 walks. Yeah, that's a skippable piece. But everybody from, let's say, everybody here up is your true appeal. And I do think that DeZenzo is a good mixer. And then maybe Dubon as a mixer if you just need a couple of base hits kind of a guy from a cheap any infield, any position spot on FanDuel. Guardians are definitely an appealing option here as well, especially with the power upside shown for those two players. You get a 7.56 in the home run model as a Steven Kwan with his weird 14 home runs that he hit mostly earlier in the season. Overall, he's created runs 30% better than average, though. 292, 365, 426. Continues to be a terrific leadoff hitter ahead of Kyle Manzardo, who's got a lot of lefty power for a very cheap price at first base. It's not great that Manzardo's a positional conflict with Naylor on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you can just plug him into the util spot for pretty cheap at $2,500. He's hit 5 home runs in 148 plate appearances. Very good contact so far. 9.8 barrels and 41.2% hard hits. Sub 300 on base, needs to improve, but a 197 ISO. He's been good for this team since getting the official call-up, and he was good in the minors, high-end prospect. 66-43, no problem paying that for Jose Ramirez. I already talked about how great he's been this season. His created runs 40% better than average. You just play him when you go to this team. Josh Naylor, also you just play, and he's only 4,400 somehow on DraftKings. He's just been too cheap over there basically all season. 3,500 on FanDuel is the correct price for this player. He's got 31 home runs, a 216 ISO, 118 WRC+, slashing 243, 319, 459. Yeah, he could hit for a better average, but do I really care? He strikes out 16.5% of the time and blasts the ball when he makes contact with it. Josh Naylor's really good. Lane Thomas making good contact as well. 7.5% barrels, 41% hard hits. Too many strikeouts, too few walks, but 15 home runs, 32 stolen bases. Better half a season in Cleveland than he was playing in Washington to start the season. 520 okay plate appearances this year overall. Last year, 682 pretty terrific plate appearances. I do think that this is the player who he really is. So easy to go to for 41-31 if you're stacking up Guardians. Andres Jimenez, 43-29, has 9 homers, 30 stolen bases. He's been interesting for DFS. For real-life baseball, he's 16 points worse than average creating runs. But for our purposes, good bat on ball, 15.3% strikeouts. You'd like him to get on base more often to exploit the speed. But there is correlated scoring and speed bonus upside there. Will Brennan, 28-24, 8 home runs on the season, a 92 WRC+, mix and match quality. Bo Naylor hasn't been all that good. 153 ISO over 382 plate appearances, 13 home runs. He's just high strikeout with a little bit of pop in the bat from the left side. You can do worse at catcher, but he's only a mix and match quality guy. And then Daniel Schneemann at the bottom of the lineup is just a bottom of the lineup hitter. Guardians... Yeah, Guardians bats, Astros bats, Ronel Blanco, Joey Cantillo. I lean bats in this one, even though Vegas doesn't. I really don't think that much of Ronel Blanco. Even if he's good today, I don't think he has a slate winning day at those prices for Blanco. Nicky Pivetta, 29.1% Ks on the season, a 4.21 ERA, but who cares? 3.51 xFIP, a lot better than the real numbers. 6.1% walks is totally manageable. Too much power and premium contact allowed for sure. 4.90% home runs on 10% barrels. Under the threshold here, but just barely. Significant fly ball trajectory for this pitcher. He's facing a team that does have a couple of home run hitters in it. Brandon Lau, most notably, 12.15 in the home run model. He's got 21 in just 416 opportunities, a 234 ISO. But he's really the only noteworthy home run hitter. Chris Morel, kind of fraudulent, 21 home runs, but 194, 286, 346, striking out 26.3%. I'm not that threatened by Chris Morel. Junior Caminero, we'll see. 5 homers so far in 164 plate appearances, does get respect in the home run model, definitely has made very good contact. And Jonathan Hernandez made very good contact, and he has 6 home runs in 130 plate appearances. So there's a couple of maybe true power bats, developing power bats there. But the jury's still out. Pivetta's exceptionally high strikeout, very good option on this slate. 9,300, totally playable, reasonable price on FanDuel. 7,900, total joke on DraftKings. I have no idea how they arrived at that price. He's facing a team with a 23.5% strikeout rate for the projected version of the lineup. Let's see what the confirmed is. I'm sure we've got it. Confirmed version of the lineup has a 23.1% strikeout rate. A lot of upside for Pivetta. He's got to be popular. I refuse to believe that this one's not going to be popular. He's got to be the highest owned DraftKings pitcher at that price. If he's not, he should be your highest owned. He is. Pivetta, Rodon, Manaea, and Wu all up at the top. And then a fairly significant drop. Michael is predictably at that 5-5 is getting a little bit of attention. But again, a lot of guys, that Jose Barrios spot, for example, just slipping through. Very low ownership. But this one's going to be popular, but it's very, very playable at 7,900. And that makes a lot of things work on this board because you're considering him an SP1 for 79. And then, like I said earlier, you could go to something even as loose as like JP Sears at 72 and just go cheap. It would be probably safer to do that with like a 79-84, but that's going to be an extremely popular combo based on what the ownership looks like. So you might be better off going, with the 84, 86 for Jones there is not bad. Detmer's at 68 is not crazy. I also said at the beginning of the show that 72, 68 there is not completely crazy on this slate. A lot of ways to manage this one. For Taj Bradley, 8,300, 9,000. He's got a 26.4% strikeout rate, a 4.30 ERA, but who cares? 366 xFIP. 12.7% swinging strike rate. He walks a few too many at 8.3%, but it's non-tragic. What's been bad has been the premium contact. We're over the threshold in all three departments. 3.96% home runs allowed is pretty believable. Fortunately for him, he's got Tristan Casas and then a lot of hard-hitting, more line drive-oriented guys. Casas is the real true home run hitter here. I know Jarren Duran's got 21 on the board this season, but he's more of a double-triples kind of a hitter. He's fantastic, don't get me wrong. It's still a very high danger spot for Taj Bradley. But I could see some success. 24.9% strikeout rate for this confirmed version of the Red Sox lineup. Really only Yoshida is a low strikeout hitter. 12.2% for him. Everybody else aggressively into the 20s. So you can see definitely a path to a good, strong start with a high strikeout total for Taj Bradley. 8,300 is not a bad option on DraftKings for him either. 9,000, totally playable on FanDuel. There's just a lot of similarly priced up options, some with more upside, some with more safety. Raised bats against Pivetta, given that he is allowing a fairly significant amount of power despite the great marks by Stuff Plus and all the strikeouts. I think you could consider them. Johnny Diaz is pretty terrific, 15% strikeouts, 14 home runs on the season. He's diminished for power this year, 135 ISO, but he still does hit the ball quite hard from the right side of the plate. So, decent shots at doubles off the monster, decent shot at poking one over it on the right day. Not a bad way to get a raised stack started. Brandon Lau's an absolute priority, 12.6% barrels, 44.6% hard hits, 21 homers, 234 ISO. Junior Caminero at just 4,200. Again, top prospect for them. 42-29, one of the top prospects in all of baseball. 164 plate appearances in. We're okay. We're at 243, 299, 414. He's been positive run creator, 5 home runs, 2 steals. Been hitting the ball extremely hard when he makes contact. Not bad for strikeouts, medium walk rate. Totally fine. Just continue to grow. Aranda for 32-27 with multi-position, including second base on both sides. It's a positional conflict with Lau for second base, positional conflict for Yandy at first base. But he is cheaper. Between the two, I'd probably skip Yandy and go just from there down and take him at first base. He's made great contact so far. The results have been mixed. 6 home runs, but a 237, 300, 449. Has been a good run creator, 15% better than average, though. Johnny DeLuca, 33-25 mix and match guy, 6 home runs, 16 steals, 78 WRC+. Josh Lowe, kind of a disappointing year, over 374 chances, 10 home runs, 25 steals, just a 97 WRC+, just a 152 ISO on 10.3% barrels, 47.3% hard hits. Definitely seems low in his, he's low. Definitely seems under where it ought to be. That's a longer way of saying that. He had a much, much better year last year. He's just gotten cheap, though, and that guy hasn't completely gone away. So I think you can play him, and he's probably one of the higher priority late lineup options from this team. Richie Palacios, just a mix-and-match quality guy at best, a little bit of speed. Good on-base skills, 350 on base, over 307 plate appearances. Has been a positive run creator, but he's an underwhelming DFS play. Jose Caballero's kind of the same thing. 44 steals for him, despite just a 283 on base. 9 home runs. If he could ever manage to get on base more reliably, he's a 50-plus stolen base guy easily. But right now, just kind of a limited option and a limiting option. But he's cheap. And then Logan Driscoll's a catcher at 2,500, 2,200 who has 1 home run in 31 plate appearances. If you're stacking up Red Sox against Bradley, it's probably a good idea if you're taking a position on Bradley. For sure, you want to hedge that off a little bit with some of these good Red Sox bats. Some of the lefties remain priorities. And then the righties are not bad. Jarren Duran's your top priority bat, 53, 38. He's got 21 home runs, 34 steals, a monster DFS season, a monster real-life baseball season just across the entire stat line. So you're not skipping him. And honestly, 53 is a pretty fair price. 38, not bad on FanDuel. Trevor Story's just 4,000. Tristan Casas is just 43. So even if you're taking that as just like a 3-man off the top on DraftKings, you're just averaging down the price of Jarren Duran by doing that because these two guys are very appealing. That makes it a $4,500 per man 3-man. I know that that's, not ideal if you're looking for cheap on your 3-man, but that is an inexpensive price for those 3 hitters as a 3-man. On FanDuel, it's basically the same thing. They average the price down pretty significantly. Casas has 12 home runs and 231 chances, a 215 ISO, a 118 WRC+. He is a tremendous left-handed power bat. Trevor Story, over less than 100 plate appearances, 2 home runs, 6 steals, slashing 253, 337, 391. 1% below average creating runs. A lot of strikeouts so far. 10.2% walks, though. Still a very professional hitter at 4,2900 to fill shortstop. Connor Wong, definitely a reasonable option at catcher for just 3,400 where the position's required. Slashing 282, 337, 428 for the season. 112 WRC+. It's been limited for power. The output hasn't been extraordinary, but that's a very good catcher season, and he's very fairly priced for that kind of output. Yoshida, 35, 3,000, another player, very effectively priced. 10 home runs is decent. 283, 350, 419 for this kind of a hitter. The 10 home runs are decent. He's a line drive guy. He's a low strikeout, hit the ball hard, keep it in the ballpark, get on base, get to second base, drive some guys in kind of a hitter. 115 WRC+. He's been very, very productive when he's been on the field this year. Vaughn Grissom at 2,200 across sites. Infield mix and match guy with a little bit of skill upside, potentially. We've never really seen it in any sustained stretch in the show, but he's got good numbers in the minors, was once upon a time a decent prospect. Willie Abreu is having a good year. 15 home runs in 437 plate appearances. Decent total. 210 ISO, even better than that home run total. Excellent contact. 11.1% barrels. 49.8% hard hits from the left side. Tremendous option. Nick Sogard, mix and match guy. 78 okay plate appearances. 87 WRC plus, though. And then Ceddanne Rafaela, below average WRC plus, but okay counting stats for DFS. Multi-position eligible on both sites at a cheap price. You could go there if you want to. Nick Pivetta, top option, but he's going to be very popular. Taj Bradley, number 2. Red Sox bats, Rays bats. Kind of lean pitching in that one. I wasn't expecting to come away with a pitching lean with Taj Bradley, but I think I do. All right. Royals, Braves, Max Fried. Good pitching matchup here. They've got DeGrom number 2 by ownership. Mom is saying, wait, did I just hear you recommending Berrios after you shit on them all here? And saying somebody is average or slightly above average is not necessarily shitting on somebody. It depends on the angle. It could definitely be taken that way. A lot of times I definitely meant it that way, but other times I didn't. It's just the reason for that, Mamba, if you weren't here, if you missed it, the reason for that is he's exceptionally low owned for a talented enough pitcher against Miami. I was expecting him to be one of the most highly owned pitchers on the slate. And per those projections and per the ones I'm seeing in chat, the one in chat there, Power, I assume that's a DraftKings projection for Berrios. That's essentially more than double the projection I was looking at. So it depends on who you think is right as far as that ownership projection goes. If he's at 15% ownership or thereabouts, I'd plunk him right back down to just like, he's okay, he's facing the Marlins, but he's going to be popular. It was at that half that kind of ownership, single-digit ownership, where I was like, all right, that's a reason to be enthused about it if he's at single-digit ownership on a slate like this. Singer, playable against the Braves. Braves checking in with a 22.5% strikeout rate, but that's somewhat artificial because it's lowered by Gio Urshela and a struggling Ozzy Albies. I forgot that it was Ozzy up top now. It's a little bit better because Ozzy Albies is significantly actually good. Urshela is just a non-threatening hitter with a low strikeout rate. Basically, everybody else in this lineup is in the mid-20s or at least the low 20s, and only a couple of them are in the low 20s. It's a better strikeout spot than it might look like on the surface for Brady Singer. He's got a 22-4 in terms of strikeouts this year, 3.73 ERA with a 3.61 xFIP. He's induced 10.2% swinging strike rate. He's been very good at managing power this year, which is obviously the thing that the Braves bring to bear. 2.85% home runs on a 9-degree average launch. Totally manageable. So don't dislike the spot for Singer at 82, 85. I think he's very playable across sites and kind of appealing because he's not going to be one of the most popular pitchers. Fried at 94, 95. Definitely strong ability to keep the Royals in check as far as scoring goes. You can see the impact he's having on their power numbers. He's very good. 2.8-degree average launch this season. Just a 1.90% home run rate allowed. 3.42 ERA against a 3.36 xFIP, 23% strikeout rate. It's another just strong Max Fried season. Always capable of giving us 7 innings. He's been 6+ in 5 straight starts. The first 2 of that stretch were 7 innings. The most 3 recent ones were 6 innings. Only one of those did he fail to get the quality start. That was a 4-run game against the Nats. 6 strikeouts in that one. 8 strikeouts against the Blue Jays, 7 against the Dodgers, 6 against the Marlins. Teed up to have a decent game here, but the Royals are effectively low strikeout, 19.9% for the confirmed lineup, and that is somewhat realistic. Most of their best hitters are low strikeout guys. So I could see it being another 7. Max went 7, gave up 2 earned runs, came away with 4 strikeouts kind of a performance. So it does limit the ceiling a little bit with Fried, 94, 95 against that price. Relative to where everybody else lands on this slate, it's somewhat limiting. I do have him, slightly further down the board, I would think, than everybody, but also capable of just going out and dominating this team, coming away with one of those starts where we say, wow, he struck out 9 against the Royals. He does have that talent level. Royals bats, Tommy Pham, 37-27. That's kind of interesting. He hasn't been all that productive this season. He hasn't been exactly bad, but 253, 09, 370, and 92 WRC plus, very shaky and below average run creation, which is where he's supposed to shine. 9 home runs, 7 steals, and 470 also. I'm going to take that back. He's been kind of bad. This is not a good Tommy Pham season. He has put decent bat on ball, 42.6% hard hits, struggling in the results department, but definitely interesting hitting ahead of Bobby Witt. 65-41 for Witt. He's got 32 home runs, 31 steals. He scored 124. He's driven in 109. He's got a 259 ISO, a 168 WRC plus. A lot of buzz for MVP contention, but I think that might be going to the Bronx. But definitely in the mix, and obviously an undeniably incredible season out of Bobby Witt. You just play him when you go to the Royals. Mike Massey, 4,200, 13 homers, 179 ISO. A decent bat-on-ball player with a little bit of pop from the left side. Just strikes out 15.6%. Walks just 4%. Definitely somebody you can throw at Max Fried here. Lefty for Massey, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Not a problem. Shouldn't waste time looking this up, but whatever. Yeah, around the same output. 250, 271, 429 with a 179 ISO. That's exactly identical to his ISO against righties. 2 of his 13 home runs against same-handed pitching, though. 11 of the 13 against opposite hand. So maybe slightly diminished. And then again, Max is excellent at limiting home run output, home run power. But Massey's still low strikeout, and he's going to put the ball in play. So if that happens to be on a shot through the infield, you're in business. Sal Perez, 45-28, slashing 273, 333, 459, has 27 home runs on the board, 117 WRC plus. This team's good at sequencing. This team's good at hitting the ball for average, putting the ball in play. So it's not the best of overall matchup for Fried because they don't truly rely on the home run ball to save them. Julie Gurriel, 2,600, 2,300, slashing 271, 362, 333. The old man's getting on base pretty aggressively over his first 58 plate appearances here. 19% strikeouts, 13.8% walks. He's just a mixer, but he's very cheap and fills first base, which you don't need to worry about otherwise on this team. Robbie Grossman at 26-21, medium mobility, 331 on base over 239 plate appearances. Even in spite of that, just an 87 WRC plus. Just a cheap outfield option, but just another outfielder. Same thing really for Hunter Renfroe. Disappointing year out of him. 159 ISO, 14 home runs in 417 chances. Not exactly a good year from him. Hampson, 22-21, just a multi-position guy on FanDuel, value guy on DraftKings with second base eligibility. And then Kyle Isbell, limited.
8 home runs, 11 steals, 82 WRC plus. Bottom end of this lineup falls off pretty dramatically around those 4 guys. I do still believe in Gurriel. Top 5 is interesting. Bottom 4, a little bit targetable for Fried. On the Braves side, Singer does remain a bit of a target. But again, he has had one of his better seasons. But Michael Harris is interesting. He's a relatively low strikeout, low walk, put the ball in play and hit it quite hard kind of an option. He's up to 16 home runs, 9 steals, 162 ISO, at league average for run creation in a season where he's been scuffling for most of the year. 48.31, reasonable price. Ozzie Albies for just 46, 3,000. He's having a terrible season for him. He also missed a large chunk of time. But that is a terrific second baseman against a targetable pitcher for a very, very cheap price for his talent. I continue to believe wholeheartedly in Ozzie Albies and his return to form next year. Marcell Ozuna, 54, 36, 39 home runs, a tremendous season, 252 ISO. Okay shot at getting to 40 home runs today. Probably going to get there between today and the weekend and Monday. Matt Olson, 53, 35, 29 home runs on the season, 217 ISO, reasonable shot to get to 30. Jorge Soler at 4,000, 3,200, very cheap for the power upside, 21 home runs on the season, 200 ISO. You get 3 players in a row right there with 200 ISOs, decent home run totals. This is what was expected or better. This is a little lower than was expected. This is a lot lower than what was expected. But these are 3 very, very real power bats in the heart of that lineup for diminished and affordable prices. 10.97, 6.99, 6.05 in the home run model today. Ramon Laureano is another guy who's been hitting the ball very, very hard. He's a different kind of hitter, but he does have 10 home runs and 288 chances, 8 steals, a 108 WRC plus. He's made himself a part of this equation. 3,700, he's cheap in the outfield. 2,800, he's cheap in the outfield. He helps things work in stacks. He's also high strikeout, low walk, so he's got a lot of flaws and puts zeros into your lineup from time to time, but capable of getting involved and contributing. Sean Murphy, always going to be playable at the catcher spot. Very cheap now on DraftKings at 3,600 because he's only hit 9 home runs. He's only at 196, 283, 347, and kind of a lost year. Just 254 plate appearances. But this is a tremendous catcher bat when he's in the lineup, so you can just continue going back there. 26 on FanDuel. Maybe he's not ideal as like a one-off catcher on DraftKings, hitting 7th in the lineup. But if you're stacking this team, he's always in play. Urshela Arcia at the bottom of the lineup, pretty skippable. Arcia has at least given us 17 home runs just like he did last year. Limited options down toward the bottom. Urshela has never been a hitter. Max Fried, but not by like a very wide margin. Then Brady Singer. Then probably Braves bats over Royals bats. Yeah, pretty significantly Braves bats over Royals bats. But the Royals are in play. Fried's not completely invulnerable. Just not as good looking a spot for them as normally you would get. Coors Field, we are going to skip the pitchers here. Don't play either of these pitchers. Problem solved. Even at 4,000, I just don't see it for Ben Kasparis. Fuck. All right, fine. 3 innings against this Colorado team last time out. He did strike out 5, but he gave up a home run. That was in a game in Los Angeles. He walked 2. Earned run on 3 hits, not a home run, excuse me. 1 inning against the Diamondbacks. I think we're just looking at like 4 innings at most, 3.5 innings. I don't think we're getting depth here. 67 innings in 14 starts, 16 appearances in AAA this season. Had a 25.4% strikeout rate, but a 12.4% walk rate. 3.36 ERA, but a 5.56 xFIP. This is a target. This is not a pitcher. Even at 4K, you're hurting yourself if you play that. And then Cal Quantrill, we just know is a target for Dodgers bats. There's nothing there. A lot of home runs, or a fair amount of home runs. A lot of runs scored, tons of walks, no strikeouts for Cal Quantrill this year. So fire away with Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani, as mentioned at the top of the show, costs $8,000. I believe, I'm not a DraftKings regular, but I regularly see their pricing. I believe that is the highest hitter price ever on DraftKings. Don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure, but that's the highest one I ever remember seeing. Anybody remember one higher, Coors Field or not? So 8,000, 6,800 for him and Mookie is extremely challenging. You're getting up to pitcher territory there. 53 home runs, 56 steals for Ohtani, a 338 ISO. Mookie's got 19 homers and 16 stolen bases with a 143 ISO. Then you get to Teoscar Hernandez for a bit of a dip in price at 5,700, 4,000. 31 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 224 ISO, 130 WRC plus for him. Max Muncy, the extremely, extremely good lefty that everybody tends to, for some reason, forget about in this lineup. 9.04 in the home run model. He's hit 15 in just 283 plate appearances. 10.6% barrels, 43.8% hard hits, 262 ISO for the veteran. Monster power bat. Will Smith, totally playable catcher, but he's 5,500 to go with those other expensive players. I don't know how you're stacking this team on DraftKings as a 5-man. It's just super high priced. There's a lot of cheap pitching to make it work, but it is difficult. I mean, your straight line 5-man has got to be virtually impossible. 6,300 apiece. Good luck. You can get, obviously, some work in with these guys, but I don't think you can straight line the top of it there. And honestly, there it's 45 apiece. I don't think you can do it there either. So Smith is in play. Tommy Edman, mix and match quality, 5,000 now on DraftKings, 3,800 on FanDuel, multi-position eligible on both. 6 homers, 6 steals, a 195 ISO, 110 WRC plus. He's been very productive since joining the team, and he's a good player over time. He's somebody we've succeeded with for counting stats at worst. Andy Pye has 41-36, believable power upside, 12 home runs in 432 chances. Gets a look at Cal Quantrill and Coors Field today. I don't mind the option, but he's going to get popular among players who stack Dodgers because where else are you going to go? On FanDuel, he's not even cheap. He's 3,600. Gavin Lux at 36 on FanDuel as well, and even Enrique Hernandez at 34. Just almost impossible to stack Dodgers in any competent lineup today on that site. Little bit more room, I feel like, with those 3 prices. Paz at 41, Gavin Lux at 48, and Enrique Hernandez multi-position at 4,000. Hernandez hasn't been good, but he has worked his way up to 11 home runs, 81 WRC plus though, and then Lux 10 home runs, 97 WRC plus. A lot more playability on the Rockies side going up against Kasparis. Seems like a targetable pitcher to me. I know he did just strike out a handful of these guys in LA, but let's see what he can do at Coors Field. The Rockies, notably cheap. I mean, the FanDuel prices are not super inexpensive, but they're a lot cheaper than the other guys. On DraftKings, you're getting some okay prices in here. You're getting some high ones too, though. Brenton Doyle at 62, Tovar at 57. So the Rocks are pulling a little bit of a Coors tax as well. Charlie Blackmon starting things off 49-34, 12 home runs on the season, and 93 WRC plus. Just playing out the string here for Charlie, but nice to see him a couple last times. If you're a sentimental player, maybe you put him in one last time around the horn for Charlie. Tovar at 57-35, a lot more interesting. 25 home runs, a 196 ISO. Dipped to a 93 WRC plus, but that'll come together over time as he continues to become a better player. He's just interesting. Good counting stat option in Coors Field, hits the ball fairly hard, 9% barrels, just under 40% hard hits. McMahon still hits the ball extremely hard, 11.1% barrels, just under 50% hard hits. He's got 20 home runs on the season, 158 ISO. Beginning of the year looked like it was going to be a lot better monster season for him. Just kind of became a Ryan McMahon season, but there's nothing wrong with that, of course. Doyle for 62-37, very expensive, but 23 homers, 29 steals, and 600 plate appearances. 98 WRC plus. You'd like to see him finish above average. 187 ISO. You'd like to see that above 200, but he's been undeniably their best player this year. Michael Talia, 17.5% barrels, 50.2% hard hits, 25 home runs in 445 plate appearances, 245 ISO, at league average for run creation. One of 2 players in this lineup at league average or above. The other is Jacob Stallings at a 114 WRC plus. Talia's a very realistic and very tremendous power bat. Very tremendous. Well said. He's a tremendous power bat that is totally real. He's exactly what he looks like. He's a 3 true outcomes guy. 31.7% strikeouts, but 11.7% walks. Should play very well in Coors going forward over the next couple of years. Interesting power bat if you're stacking this team. Not one to be skipped at all. Brendan Rodgers, 4,400, 3,200, 13 home runs, 43.9% hard hits. I continue to be a buyer on Rodgers when I'm stacking this team when they're at Coors. Anybody who hits the ball as hard as he does from second base for as cheap as he is across sites every single slate can be involved. He's not necessarily good even, but he's always cheap. He's always too low owned for Coors Field stacks, and he fills second base. So I'm fine with it. Nolan Jones, 48-31, had a great year last year in limited plate appearances, went 20-20. This year in 285, he's been completely awful, but I still believe in the talent. 45.6% hard hits on my buyer on the left side. He's one of the cheaper options on this team if you're stacking. Stallings has a limited contact profile, 23% strikeouts, just under 10% walks keeps him interesting. 357 on bases, obviously good, feeds the upside in the WRC plus, and he has managed 9 home runs despite the limited contact. Cheap catchers are always in play, of course. Jake Cave, I almost called it Coors Cave and said Jake Fields. Jake Cave, 7 home runs, 5 steals, mix and match quality outfielder. Dodgers bats way above the Rockies bats, but the Rockies are also very much in play. Povich, Lopez, Twins, Orioles. Lopez 88-94 comes in with a 25-5 on the strikeout number. 13% swinging, though, kind of interesting. Orioles, a couple of free swingers in that lineup, but a couple of guys that are very low strikeout to help offset it, like Ryan O'Hearn and Adley Rutschman, some limited around 20% strikeout guys. So not really the best target for Pablo Lopez. He's also prone to getting blown up. Hasn't had the best year, hasn't had a bad year, and the xFIP is nearly a full run better than that clunky ERA. I don't dislike Pablo. I don't think he's having the year that he had last year where he took a big leap forward. Last year he came to Minnesota, put up a 3.66 ERA, a 3.29 xFIP, 29.2% strikeout rate on tremendous strike throwing numbers, was good at limiting power. This year he slipped basically across the board. But if you just brought this guy in with no name on the back of his jersey, you'd be like, damn, let me sign that guy to a multi-year contract. That is a good pitcher. So absolutely fine with going to it. Just under a lot of threat from the Orioles. You can see pretty significant home run marks there for this team. The full lineup at 8.21, the top 6, just under the magic number on the average for home run upside. 3.36% home run rate this year. Last time out, Lopez got annihilated at Fenway Park. He gave up 7 earned runs on 9 hits in just 4 innings, 2 home runs, 3 strikeouts. 4 strikeout game over 6 1/3 against Cleveland at Cleveland, just 2 runs on 8 hits, but not a great game. 7-inning game against LA, the Angels. 4 unearned runs on 8 hits, struck out 10. Weird one there. 3 earned runs over 6 2/3, 9 Ks. A good 7 2/3. Actually went, that's right, I forgot about this stretch. Had a really good stretch. August 18th through 30th. At Texas against St. Louis and against Toronto at home. 6 innings, 7 2/3 innings. No runs allowed over those 3 starts. 16 hits allowed, but no runs. Walked 4, struck out 15 over that stretch. Really good stretch of pitching, but he's been more vulnerable since, and definitely vulnerable to a team that's as good as the Orioles. He's easily playable at 88-94, but he's not my favorite among the top handful of pitchers. He belongs in this group, but he's not my favorite. I think I would definitely rather have Rodon, definitely Wu, definitely Pivetta, especially at price, especially on DraftKings. Probably rather have Manaea. Don't think I'd rather have DeGrom. We're going to have to talk about that DeGrom ownership number that somebody put in the chat a minute ago. Bradley, Barrios, knowing that Barrios is going to be lower owned against a much worse team, even for more money, Barrios is kind of more interesting than Lopez. On DraftKings, it's a little closer because of that price. That 94 on FanDuel, I don't love against the Orioles. For Povich, 6,300 is a very cheap price. He's got a 20.2% strikeout rate, a 5.59 ERA with a 4.97 xFIP. We just kind of want to ignore a little bit if we're going to this pitcher. Last 2 starts have been pretty decent, both against Detroit. I mentioned him earlier in the show. 7 strikeouts and 2 runs, and 8 strikeouts and 2 runs, both 5-inning outings. Peaked at 10 strikeouts against the White Sox over 7 1/3 in his best start, but also had a couple 6 strikeout games earlier in the season. A couple of them where he was vulnerable to runs. His worst performance came against Oakland. He gave up 8 earned runs and lasted just 1 inning. That's going to totally destroy your ERA. He's also got a couple 5-run games in there in limited action. So, you take these numbers and you just deal with it because it's low. It's a small sample. He's made 15 starts but only thrown 74 innings for a high-profile rookie. These aren't completely terrible numbers. There are workable numbers in here for a kid at such a low price. In his minor league starts this year, he made 14 starts in the minors, 77 2/3, had a 3.48 ERA with a 4.07 xFIP, had a 28.2% strikeout rate, and an 8.5% walk rate. So when I say Cade Povich is actually good, I really do mean it. It's just you're facing a Twins team with a 20.3% strikeout rate, Number of their best hitters are fairly low strikeout to very low strikeout. They've got a lot of reasonable medium strength power hitters and a lot of very good line drive hitters. They're good at drawing walks. They're very good at getting on base and creating runs. Just not a team I want to tangle with Cade Povich. If you're going to do it, 6,300 on DraftKings is your spot. 77 on FanDuel. I question your upside to the quality start, and I question just the quality of this start in general. Orioles bats, Gunnar Henderson for 61.42. By comparison to Bobby Witt, you're getting a little bit of a discount for basically the same guy. 37 home runs, 21 steals for him. The average is lower. I know they're not exactly the same, but you can kind of get what I'm putting down there. 284, 367, 534, a 250 ISO, 157 WRC+. If I'm a little off the mark saying they're the same, apologies. Jordan Westberg, 12.1% barrels and 46.5% hard hits. Just 4,500 second and third base on DraftKings, 32 second, third, and short on FanDuel. He's hit 18 home runs and 437 plate appearances, has a 222 ISO, 129 WRC+. If you remember, he broke camp with this team instead of Jackson Holliday and just kind of held down the job out of the gate. Missed a little bit of time in there, but that's a solid season over 437 chances. If you'd given him 600 plus, you'd be dealing with like a 25 home run guy or a 22 home run guy. It's a decent player for still a cheap price, hitting second behind Gunnar, between Gunnar and Santander. You know how much upside is just in that lineup spot? It's a great option. 9.61 in the home run model, too. Santander, 5,100, 3,700, 44 home runs, a 275 ISO this year, 15.35 in the home run model for Santander today. Love the upside for a little bit of power out of him. Colton Cowser at 43.32 remains very cheap. 23 home runs, a 202 ISO out of him. Strong option in the outfield for those prices. 13.9% barrels, 45.7% hard hits. Look at all this premium contact to throw at Pablo Lopez right off the top. Lopez is good, no doubt about it, but he does slip up from time to time. 8.1% barrels, 3.36% hard hits, or home runs rather, on a reasonable fly ball trajectory. Not invulnerable to power. Adley, regardless of any of the struggling based on the getting plunked in the hand, he did hit his 19th home run. He is now priced down to 4,600. We've cut his price by 1,000 since I started harping on it like 2 weeks ago. Now he's appropriately priced. Now you just go there. Hopefully people are staying away now, thinking, I don't put Adley Rutschman in my lineup when I'm building Orioles lineups because his price hasn't, without realizing that the price came down. And when I say since I started talking about it, I know it has nothing to do with me, but did kind of come down from when we noticed it. 16.4% strikeouts, 9.3% walks. There's a lot to like, and especially if the hand is healing up a little bit. Even with it, he's still at a 104 WRC+, and he's affordable at catcher now. Ryan O'Hearn, 38.28, pretty effectively priced for a guy with 13 home runs, a 113 WRC+, and just a 13.7% strikeout rate and a 9.3% walk rate. Ryan Mountcastle, their positional conflicts at first base, either one is playable. Mountcastle's got more true power. He's also hit 13 home runs in 10 more plate appearances. Similar ISO at 157. It's a righty-lefty thing. It's a price thing. Whatever fits for you. If in multiple lineups of Orioles, you want some of both of those guys. Ced Mullins, 44-31, 18 homers, 32 steals. Pretty good season over 492 chances. Still very cheap in the outfield with tons of counting stat upside. And then Ramon Urias, 37-25, hit his 11th home run after we talked about him the other day. Always provides cheap, sneaky cheap, sneaky late lineup power. 9.1% barrels, 39.4% hard hits this year, a 117 WRC+. Every single hitter in this confirmed Orioles lineup above average for run creation, 120 WRC+. A lot of threat coming Pablo's way. To take the Twins, which is probably the better position to throw at the rookie, Manny Margot is not a good hitter, but he is a better hitter against lefties than he is against righties, so that earns him the leadoff spot when this team faces a lefty, because what else are you going to do with Manny Margot? Not a good option to start things off. He's just very cheap in the outfield at 2,600. You can bolt him on and hope for the best for correlated scoring, but for me, the stack really starts at Carlos Correa. 47.35 for that player is too cheap across DraftKings anyway. 35 is not bad on FanDuel. 313, 395, 22, 14 home runs and 363 chances, a 209 ISO. Created runs 57% better than average when he was on the field this year. Carlos Correa reclaimed his career this year. He is tremendous and honestly never really slipped that far. Byron Buxton, when he's on the field, he's fantastic. 18 home runs, 242 ISO, creating runs 39% better than average. Just needs to be healthy. There are a lot of strikeouts and not that many walks, but we care less with Byron Buxton because of the superstar attributes that he provides across the board. 13.4% barrels, 47.6% hard hits. Carlos Santana, very low strikeout guy. Good at drawing walks, 17% strikeouts, 10.7% walks. Involved in tons of scoring for them. 22 home runs on the year, a 110 WRC plus, a key bat from both sides of the plate for a very cheap price at first base against a gettable lefty. Royce Lewis, 45-33. The price has come way down. The home runs haven't exactly gone way up since that hot start, but he is still maintaining a 228 ISO over his 314 plate appearances. Does still have a lot of true power from the right side. Kyle Farmer, 25-24, mix and match quality guy. We've talked about Farmer before. We got a handful of cheap home runs out of him from the bottom of the lineup at low ownership in a situation just like this several times over the last 2 seasons. 11 last year and 12-14 the year before. He's a low-owned, low-cost option that fills multiple positions in the infield. Second base is where you want him anyway on DraftKings, so he's playable there. 3 positions on FanDuel. He's a mixer. He's not a high-quality player, but he's fairly low strikeout, can put bat on ball, just is having a bad season this year, over 232 plate appearances. Ryan Jeffers having a pretty decent year, 20 home runs, kind of an under-discussed catcher power hitter. 8.5% barrels, a 203 ISO, 106 WRC plus. You can always go there. Christian Vasquez, much more skippable at the same position. And then Willie Castro, playable. More of a correlated scoring option than anything else. 12 home runs, 14 steals this year, but a 108 WRC plus and a good wraparound with a 333 on base to put him back up. I would rather have Willie Castro from the bottom spot than Manny Margot from the leadoff spot in this game. Twins bats. Pablo, that was uncomfortable. Twins bats, Pablo and the Orioles bats are tied, and then Cade Povich. I really don't want to lean too hard into Pablo. Mets, Brewers, Sean Manaea, looking pretty solid. Both lineups are in. 5:41. All right, we've clawed back some of our time. We're doing okay. Here we go. That's still a lot of games. What is it? Oh, no, it's a different order on labs. Okay. I thought it was only 4 games after this. It looked like more on labs. So I mentioned Manaea's ridiculous run. He's been really, really good down the stretch here. And he's just a good pitcher. The thing with him for a large chunk of his career was the work. Several seasons he got moved into like a hybrid role where he's pitching in bulk relief, pitching out of the bullpen, making short starts where it's just like, all right, Manaea's good. He's a high strikeout guy, but we're dealing with just like 5 innings. He's eradicated that this season. He's on a run again of started in like beginning of July, honestly. July 2nd, he went 7 innings against the Nationals. Followed that with 6 innings, followed that one with 7. Then a 5 inning, a 4 2/3 inning start, but came back from those 2 with back-to-back 7 inning starts. Then had a 3 inning start on August 10th. That was a messy-ish one. He gave up just 3 earned runs in his 3 innings. He struck out 3 but walked 5. That was against the Mariners. I'm 100% sure I had him that day. But that was the one outlier. On June 30th, that was the pair of 7 inning starts. It was June 30th, August 5th. Outside of that 3 inning start after those 2, he went 7 2 in a row, 6 2/3, 7, 6 2/3 for 2 in a row, and then his most recent 2 starts have both been 7 innings. So he has pitched into the 7th inning in, again, what was it, 7 straight starts? Only one of them was not a quality start. Monster strikeout totals, 11 strikeout game, 2 9 strikeout games, and 8 strikeout game. For the season, he's at 25.5 as far as the strikeout rate goes. 3.29 ERA with a 3.97 xFIP, 11.8% swinging. This is a very, very good Sean Manaea season. 178 innings in 31 starts is, I think, the most noteworthy part of it. Everything else, if you told me Sean Manaea is going to throw 178 innings this season, I would have called you crazy, and then I would have said he's probably going to put up numbers somewhere around that territory. So, totally believable year out of him. Brewers, 22.1% strikeout. They've got Turang in the leadoff spot, Sal Frelick in the 2 spot. Both of those guys are pretty low strikeout, but then you get a run. All their best bats, low to mid 20s. That averages to a 23.8 across those 4 hitters, and then you got 2 high strikeout guys at the bottom of the lineup. Gary's dangerous for righty power. Manaea could run into that a little bit, but he's been very good at limiting power despite being a fly ball pitcher. Like the upside. Frankie Montas on the other side, 7,000, 7,800. I continue to not really be a believer. 4.85 ERA. The xFIP is a little bit better at 4.26. It's a half a run difference, but that's still a high number. He walks just under 10%. It's inducing an 11% swinging strike rate, but not throwing nearly enough strikes given that 11% swinging strike rate. 22.3% Ks. He can find some strikeouts from time to time. This version of the Mets lineup, 23.1% strikeouts, so there are a couple on the board for him, but it's a high danger spot. There are a lot of good hitters in this lineup. There are a lot of guys at or about the magic number for power upside. I just think it's a danger spot for Montas. He's cheap. You can absolutely play Frankie Montas here. 7,000, totally reasonable on DraftKings. In fact, he's kind of appealing for that money. 78 on FanDuel. You can do it, but where he projects and where he's likely to land ceiling-wise, I really don't like it. And again, I tend to take the downside with Frankie Montas. Last time out, 2 2/3, 7 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, 3 home runs allowed. The good game before that against the Phillies, as I mentioned earlier, 10 strikeouts, which surprised me, but didn't surprise our pal Blaine in his model. And that was a 10 strikeout game that was coming off of an 8 strikeout game, and that 8 strikeout game was coming off of a 10 strikeout game. So he had 3 good strikeout games in a row there. One was against the Phillies, but in that one again, he gave up 2 home runs, 3 earned on 6 hits over 5 2/3. Took the loss, failed to book the quality start, and allowed 2 home runs, and that totals to 5 home runs in his last 2 starts, his last, 8 1/3 innings. So is that really 2 good starts? Or 1 good start? I question whether that Philly start was even all that great. 6 innings against San Francisco, undeniably good. 2 hits, no runs, 8 strikeouts, 2 walks. 6 innings against Colorado, 10 strikeouts, but 3 walks, a home run allowed, 3 earned runs on 2 hits. Back-to-back 4-run games over 6 innings at Cincinnati and at Oakland with mediocre strikeout totals. And then a lot of meh going back before that this year. He has been a good pitcher in spots throughout his career. He's a veteran guy. This isn't somebody new. So we've seen decent runs and we've seen better strikeout seasons. But overall, this is who Frankie Montas is. 4.85 ERA, 4.26 xFIP. Limited by Stuff Plus. Decent amount of home runs. Over the threshold there. 8.9% is an aggressive barrel rate. 3.61% home runs is non-tragic, but it plays into the Mets' power. So again, cheap enough to play, not the option for me. Frankie Lindor back in the Mets lineup, playing through pain, 5,600, 3,900 across sites, easily playable at shortstop, 31 homers, 27 steals. If the Mets are willing to put him out there, then I am too. I'm not going to worry about the back as long as he's actually taking the field. It is, I guess, lurking in the back of the mind because he's so high priced. But again, if the Mets are willing to put him out there and they're still chasing the playoffs, definitely worth doing. Mark Vientos, 4,400. You know what to do. 26 home runs, a 253 ISO, 137 WRC plus. He's just good. 4,500, 3,100, more appropriately priced for Brendan Nimmo. He's got 22 homers, 14 steals. In a diminished season, he is still putting up a 111 WRC plus. It's just a lot of the slash line is a little bit underwhelming compared to where we would normally expect Nimmo. The strikeouts at 29.4 is about right. He's walked, 23.2 is about right. The 12% walks is about right for Nimmo. 46.9% hard hits. There are a lot of his attributes, a lot of his positive attributes are still there. Just a little bit of a tick down, but in the 3 spot in this lineup, hitting between a bunch of good options, you don't dislike it. I was putting in my placeholder. That's why I lost track of which line I was on. Pete Alonso, sub 5,000 on DraftKings for a tremendous power hitter who has 34 home runs, a 225 ISO, 13.3% barrels, and 45.6% hard hits. Seems a little cheap. 31 on FanDuel honestly seems a little cheap. 9.65 against Montas today in the home run model. Vientos leading the team at 10.4. Frankie at 8.9. Jose Iglesias drops to the 5 spot today, 4,100, 2,700. He held down the leadoff role for Lindor while he was out. He's slashing an absurd 336, 379, 456, 138 WRC plus. I promise he's not one of the better hitters in baseball. This is just a weird run of a growing sample of plate appearances. This is a guy in his 30s. This is a surprising run from a player playing way above his head for a short stretch. It will end at some point. It's a nice story right now. Winker at 36-29, the more appealing player. 14 home runs, 14 steals, a 119 WRC plus, 152 ISO in a strong bounce back season. He's limited. He's only okay, but he's very playable. JD Martinez at 43.28, tons of power upside, 14.8% barrels and 45.2% hard hits. Doesn't exactly get reflected by 16 home runs and a 173 ISO over 482 plate appearances. He's hit the ball harder than his results would tell you. Makes him very playable at these prices. Also has outfield eligibility on both sides, first base eligibility on DraftKings. Francisco Alvarez, 34.26, up to 11 home runs. Tremendous option at the catcher spot for a very cheap price. It's just not a great lineup spot at the bottom of the lineup. And then Tyrone Taylor's a mix and match outfielder. Turang and Frelick both put the ball in play at a decent clip. 16.9 and 14.8% strikeouts with kind of middling walk rates. Neither guy hits the ball overly hard. 7 home runs and 2 home runs despite a over 1,100 combined plate appearances. You get 47 stolen bases and 18 stolen bases. Neither guy is above average for run creation, though. Kind of a weird fit in the leadoff spot. A couple of lefties to face Sean Manaea as a lefty starter as well. That's a really weird lineup. Hang on while I investigate. This is something we probably don't need to look up with 10 minutes till 6 o'clock and 4 more games to talk about, but we're going to do it. I mean, technically, Manaea is allowed more to lefties in a short sample. He's also struck out more lefties. 7 home runs allowed to 152 lefties, 13 home runs allowed to 565 righties. But it's a really short, limited sample. He struck out 46 of the 152 lefties he's faced. That's a weird decision. Are those two like... I mean, Turang's usually at the bottom of the lineup when there's a lefty on the mound. Sean Manaea didn't go on this run because he suddenly started pitching right-handed and I missed it or something, did he? Yeah, Turang this year against lefties, 225, 275, 279 with a .054 ISO and a 56 WRC+. And then... Frelick, 247, 311, 358 with a 111 ISO, 88 WRC+. It's a weird first 2 hitters. And then it rolls into Jackson Chourio and William Contreras, who are the top 2 priorities in this lineup, with apologies to Willy Adames, who has had a tremendous year and is right there with those 2 guys. That's really where you want to consider your options from the Brewers is 3, 4, 5, maybe some 6, maybe some 7. I actually like everybody after the top 2 hitters a little bit more than I like the top 2 hitters. Both of those guys are cheap, but they're really mismatched up there against a lefty and a good lefty. I don't understand that decision. Chourio at 45-34, 21 home runs, 21 stolen bases, a 192 ISO, tremendous contact option. William Contreras continues to be one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball, 23 homers, 281, 364, 468. He's created runs 31% better than average. Big part of why this team is so good. Adames, 46-36, 32 homers, 21 stolen bases, a 215 ISO, 120 WRC+, slashing 251, 331, 466 is the most surprising part of that. He has had a fantastic season end to end this year. And still not 5,000 on DraftKings. 36 on FanDuel is correct. Rhys Hoskins at just 4,000 is interesting. 3,000 on FanDuel at 8.81 in the home run model, even against a lefty who, again, Manaea doesn't give up a lot of home runs, but he gives up fly balls. And if you're going to throw Rhys Hoskins into that mix for such a cheap price, he's hit 25 home runs. He's been inconsistent, but he still has a 200-plus ISO, all that good contact. That's what Rhys Hoskins does. Joey Ortiz, 32-27, mix and match quality, really diminished over the second half or, maybe even a little earlier, but had a really tremendous start to the season. Just kind of playable at this point for a cheap price. Gary Sanchez, you guys know I'm going to tell you, is interesting. 10 home runs, a 165 ISO and 271 chances. Never stopped hitting the ball extremely hard whenever he makes contact. Remains extremely high strikeout and a flawed hitter overall and is hitting 8th today, but he's very cheap for the home run potential. That said, we're at just 5.47 in today's home run model, so don't get carried away. But if you build a bunch of Brewers, Gary's in play. Perkins at 31-28, just mix and match quality, 6 homers, 22 steals, 15 points below average for run creation this year. Manaea, Mets, Brewers, Montas. Take that, Frankie Montas. think I'm not holding a grudge about that 10 strikeout game. All right, Rangers, Angels. So apparently Jake DeGrom is per those numbers that got dropped into chat, per Powers numbers, wherever he's getting those, second most highly owned pitcher behind Pivetta. I don't buy it. I don't think that's correct. Now, I also don't think that DraftKings numbers are necessary, or RG's numbers are necessarily correct for DraftKings ownership, because they had the uniquely low number on Jose Barrios, who's still at that number, half of what's in that message. They've also got DeGrom at right around that same level, which I think actually for DeGrom is correct. I'd be surprised, and I would say that it's probably a mistake if DeGrom is owned at 17.2%. I don't think there's upside for innings. He wasn't pitching basically at all. The rehab outings were limited. He got to 4 innings in his last rehab start, but that was only 13 hitters. He gave up 1 hit and struck out 5. I forget what the pitch count was, but it wasn't impressive. It wasn't significant. He didn't even go 3 innings in the 3 other rehab starts. And then since coming back to the show, he's made 2 starts against Seattle. First one was at Seattle. He faced 16 hitters, 3 2/3, struck out 4, gave up 4 hits. And then in a home start, he went just 3, faced 13 hitters, 3 hits allowed, including a home run, struck out 5 and walked 1. He threw 61 pitches in the first game and 58 pitches in the second game. Where's your upside coming from? Like I said at the start of the show, he could pitch 4 innings and strike out 8 Angels. I don't question that at all. Where's the rest of your upside coming from? Where's your slate win coming from at 84, 81? Because that's just going to put us around these totals. You're not going to get a win bonus. You're not going to get a quality start bonus guaranteed on FanDuel. If I'm wrong and he goes 5, then you're in business on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you're still probably not. Although you would get additional strikeout upside. He would potentially have 10 strikeouts in a 5-inning start against this team. The Angels come in with a 27% strikeout rate. Even in his tiny sample, DeGrom's already at 31%, 3.4% walks. Last year, 39.1% in his 30 1/3 innings. The year before, 42.7% in 64 1/3 innings. This is not a pitcher with a lot of tread on his tires over the last couple of seasons either. But we know how good Jake DeGrom is. Nobody's saying he's not. For anybody new, please understand what I'm saying. Jake DeGrom is literally the best pitcher of his generation when he's able to be on the mound. But if you get that guy for just 3 innings, 65 pitches, maybe 70, even against this team, there's not enough. Not at these prices. They should have priced him in the 7s. FanDuel almost got there. He should be probably $1,000 less expensive, and then he'd be playable. If he's going to be owned anywhere near the 17% that got dropped in the chat, I think that's fucking bananas. I really don't see how you could do that. Reed Detmers is more interesting. 6,800, 7,900 for him. He projects out similarly, but he actually has innings pitched upside. He's facing a limited Rangers lineup. They're at just 19.8% strikeouts if you look at that number, but that includes a pair of zeros. The rest of these guys, 25.4. So don't be misled by Sandro Fabian and Matt Duffy coming into this one with 5 and 4 plate appearances and not having struck out just yet. There's a lot of Ks available in this lineup. There's a couple low strikeout guys. Marcus Semien continues to be that. Jonah Heim in the 3 spot today. Oh, that's still projected. Hold on. We don't have this one yet. So, I mean, there are definitely Ks here. Detmers is capable of finding them. 26.4% Ks over 82 1/3 this year in the majors. Was having a good run in the minors. 6.67 ERA and a 4.04 xFIP. There's obviously a lot of difference between those two numbers. I continue to believe that this is the real version of him. 10.1% walks is an inflated walk rate, but he's cheap because of it. 13% swinging strikes, nearly a 30% CSW. That's all I really need to know against, especially if it's like this version of the Rangers lineup. Very fairly priced here. Extremely fairly priced on DraftKings. That is downright cheap and appealing on DraftKings. So a lot of upside there. Detmers, again, can get blown up. I read these numbers off at the beginning of the show. Last couple starts weren't good at all. 7 earned runs apiece. 2 innings against the Astros, blew up, 7 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. 6 strikeouts, 3 walks, but 3 home runs, 7 earned runs in 5 1/3 against the White Sox. But had a very good, effective game against the Twins, 6 innings, 8 strikeouts. 6 innings against the Dodgers, 2 earned runs, 10 strikeouts to start before that. So 2 up, 2 down. We'll see what happens in this one. Rangers bats against, kind of limited. You're just targeting, Reed Detmers has to have a bad day for them to have a good day kind of a situation. I don't know that it necessarily is the best target on the board. There are playable bats. Marcus Semien, 47-33, continues to just be cheap at second base for his talent. 22 home runs, on the threshold of another 100 run scored season, one of the better run scorers in baseball the last couple of years. He's just diminished as far as the output goes, but as I've continued to harp on, nothing in the StatCast numbers, the rates over here, this part of the board says that he should be as bad as he's been this year, so I would continue to go there. Wyatt Langford has been surging. He's up to 14 home runs and 18 steals in what is turning into good rookie season numbers when you look at the back of the baseball card 10 years from now. Pretty decent hard-hitting barrel numbers as well. Jonah Heim is very cheap if he's hitting third at catcher, 2,700 across sites. He's only got 13 home runs, a 114 ISO, a 69 WRC plus though this season. He's earned that cheap price. It would just be an interesting lineup spot if he's hitting 3. Adolis Garcia, 4,300, 24 homers, 11 stolen bases, hit his 24th just last night or the night before. 172 ISO, a 90 WRC plus in a limited season for a very talented player. If you're stacking Rangers, you're definitely including him. But he's not really an appeal and not really a draw to the Rangers today. Nathaniel Lowe, just a good bat, gets on base a ton, 358 on base, 116 WRC plus, good correlated scoring option no matter what you're doing with this team. If he's hitting 3, which he probably should be, if they're considering Jonah Heim in that spot, they should just put Nathaniel Lowe there. He gets more appealing if he climbs the lineup. Justin Foscue is very cheap. He hasn't done anything in 44 plate appearances. These guys haven't done anything in 4 and 5 plate appearances. And Jonathan Ornelas is at the bottom of the lineup with limited output in 39 plate appearances. Just kind of feeds the upside for Reed Detmers. Limited options down toward the bottom of the Rangers if this is the version of the lineup that we get. Angels against DeGrom, I really wouldn't do it, considering that Jake DeGrom is going to be taking the top off this lineup for at least 4 innings, or probably exactly 4 innings. Really don't like it. Taylor Ward would be a top priority play if you go there. Eric Wagaman maybe number 2. He's got 2 home runs on the board. In reality, it's probably Logan O'Hoppe with his 20 home runs, his 97 WRC plus, 165 ISO. Brendan Drury has been a lost cause all year. I would consider him entirely skippable. Mickey Moniak, pretty lost cause most of the season. Okay output and counting stats, but not really because it's 418 plate appearances. Tons of strikeouts there, as well as there, and also there. So it is a very good target for Jake DeGrom. I get it as far as like you would want to play the real Jake DeGrom in this spot 150 times out of 150 lineups. This is just unfortunately not going to be the real version of Jake DeGrom. Not for these prices. Nico, 2,200, 2,500, 3 home runs in 94 plate appearances, but extremely limited and 40+% Ks. It's a bad lineup. I wouldn't stack Angels really at all. Reed Detmers and really nothing else, but it would be Reed Detmers, Rangers bats would be the only 2 things I want from this game. If I'm wrong about DeGrom, feel free to drop into the chat why I might be wrong about DeGrom. I'd love to figure it out and discuss it more. Not that we've got a ton of time to do that in. It's one I'll profusely apologize for being wrong about, but I don't think I am wrong. I don't think they're taking... Why would they take the leash off today, though? Lone Wolf. You know? Like, there's really no justification to do that. It's not like they're loosening them up for the playoffs. They've been out for 2 weeks now, or a week now. I just don't see why they would have him throw even 80 pitches, since he has not done it this year. Why would you risk it in a meaningless spot? You'd love to see him do it to demonstrate for next year that he can do it. But I just don't see it. I really think we're dealing with 3-4 innings again. Pods and the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks, one of the highest totals overall on the slate. coming in at 4.46, one of the higher fours, one of the higher overall totals. Going up against Yu Darvish, who is, this version of Yu Darvish is kind of gettable. 3.57% home run rate, most notably, down to 24% strikeouts for the season, but still a very tidy 3.18 ERA, a not tragic 3.80 xFIP behind it over his 76 and a third, 15 starts. Has been pretty decent since coming back, too. Missed everything from May 29th to September 4th. On the 4th, he came back, just worked 2 2/3. We'll ignore that one. 5 innings against Seattle on the 10th, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. Faced Houston on the 16th, 3 hits, no runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's a reasonable game over 6 innings against Houston. And then against the White Sox, 2 earned runs over 6 and a third. Struck out 9, but gave up 2 home runs. Reasonable start, gives you a little something to cling to with Darvish. 86.93 though against one of the most high run scoring teams in the game, and a team that really doesn't provide a lot of strikeout upside. I think Darvish is just a hard no on this slate. He's just mispriced for this matchup. He could come out and find a good strikeout game, but it feels like a no. It feels like a why would you kind of a spot, because look where he aligns relative to all those prices around him. It just doesn't fit right on this slate. Shorter slate, different option, maybe, but I have a very healthy respect for Diamondbacks bats. And then Merrill Kelly on the other side of this one, probably not a strong consideration either. On the 21st, he faced Milwaukee, went just 5, 2 hits, 6 strikeouts. It's a decent game, a 6-inning game, 1 run allowed, 5 strikeouts at Coors is a pretty good start. He's kind of challenged for strong depth, but does have a 7 and a 6 in there in his last few. I just don't love tackling with the Padres either. Lowest or one of the lowest strikeout teams in baseball. Just rarely a good matchup. As I was saying at the beginning of the show, this is a very, very important game for the D-backs. So I could see this being just a very, a good baseball game that is well pitched. A couple runs score on both sides, and then it's decided against the bullpen late in the game. The Diamondbacks are currently tied with the New York Mets for the second wild card spot, and those two teams are 1 game up on the Atlanta Braves, who the Mets have to play a doubleheader against on Monday, assuming the Diamondbacks don't shit the bed and lose all their games this weekend, and the Braves don't do the same thing. So, yeah, crucial spot for the D-backs. Crucial spot for Merrill Kelly. But I could see it being a situation where it's, all right, Merrill, you managed to give us 5 good innings. Let us get you the hell out of there. And that probably doesn't come with a good strikeout total. So really kind of a limited spot, 78-86. I like it a lot better on DraftKings if you have to go there. 86 on FanDuel, not a good fit against a team with a 17.9% strikeout rate for the projected version of the lineup. Pods is not here just yet, or at least not up on labs. I'm just going to use this one. Luis Arias, 37-28. Good mix and match quality table setter. Good correlated scoring option with Fernando Tatis. I like everybody else individually in this lineup pretty much better than Arias, but as a correlated scoring piece, you can't do a lot better than Luis Arias on any given slate. Tatis has 21 home runs, 11 stolen bases, a 221 ISO. We got the home run out of him. I want to say that was yesterday. Pretty sure. When we talked about if him or Merrill was the better choice. I think we got that one right. 14.8% barrels, 55.2% hard hits. Jurickson Profar at 41.34. Mispriced on DraftKings for the year he's having. Maybe we continue to not believe fully in doing this again next year, but that's what that price means. $3,400 on FanDuel is the correct price for who this guy is this year. And it's a late career breakout from a player who once upon a time was a very high-end prospect. Low strikeouts at 14.9, 11.4% walks. Those are strong attributes that don't necessarily go away with, just whatever the luck might look like in terms of balls dropping in. He is a decent bat. So I'm kind of on board now, late in the season. Call me the last man chasing the bandwagon. $5,000, $3,500 at third base for Manny Machado continues to be a great price. On the cusp of 30 home runs again for him. 201 ISO, 125 WRC plus. Another player who, what bad season. Earlier in the year, there were questions. I think we shook them all off. Jackson Merrill, 4,300 is just a dumb price. 33 on FanDuel is honestly a little bit low for a guy slashing 293, 23, 498, a 208 ISO, creating runs 28% better than average. 24 home runs, 16 stolen bases, and probably the reason that this team is in the playoffs. Xander Bogaerts, 39.29 across sites, always going to be playable. Still hits for an okay average at 264. The on base is diminished, but at least he's up above 300 again. 96 WRC plus, and a lack of power is concerning. 119 ISO, 11 home runs, 13 steals. He's like a mix and match infielder now for a fair price on both sides. Cronenworth at 36, 3,000, meh. 17 home runs, okay slash line, but just a 149 ISO. Has been a positive run creator. He's cheap at second base. You can use him, but he's not overly appealing. Solano, 2,500, 2,700, solid line drive hitter. 278, 334, 401 on the season. Creating runs 11% better than average. And one last time, Kyle Higashioka, hunting for his 17th home run of the year. It's been a minute. He's been stuck on 16 for a little bit, but 252 ISO, 255 plate appearances. We are right on the cusp of getting to the 260. We're over the 248 from 2 years ago. Both of those years, he had 10 home runs on very good contact. This year, we're half again on top of that in the same number of plate appearances. Love Higgy. Happy for him. Happy that he's found at least a part-time home at the bottom of this lineup. He is a true power threat, 8.20 on the home run model. You can play him. It's not a good spot in the lineup. He is a high strikeout player who can very easily put a couple zeros in your lineup. So just know what you're buying. The surging Diamondbacks have been pretty terrific all through the second half. I kind of hope this team makes the playoffs. They're just so much fun to watch. Really like this squad. 54-37 for Corbin Carroll off the top. He scored a ton of runs this year. He's up to 21 homers and 32 steals, a 194 ISO, 106 WRC plus. The average is the only thing that's going to end up looking bad about this season for Corbin Carroll. Ketel Marte at 6,000, 4,000, 35 home runs from the best second baseman in the game. For DFS purposes, we get Mookie on FanDuel at second base, so there's an argument to be made there. But Ketel's been fantastic this year. He's the most highly priced player on this team, but everybody below those two is cheap for their talent. So it just averages those prices right back down. Getting Jock Peterson at 46, 3,000 on FanDuel, his 23 home runs from the left side, a platoon player with a 242 ISO, just potential to tee off against Darvish and the elevated contact numbers. Christian Walker, another premium contact bat, premium power bat, 9.39 in the home run model today. He's hit 26 this year at 220 ISO. Was a little better for power last season, but tremendous output, tremendous bat on ball skills. Lourdes Gurriel, good at everything, not great at anything. 18 home runs, 7 steals, a 107 WRC plus. Good line drive hitter, decent, always playable for a cheap price and low ownership. Pavin Smith, also cheap in the outfield, 3,800. He's got a 14.2% barrel, 44.3% hard hits, and he's pushed his way up to 9 home runs with a 286 ISO in his 154 plate appearances. He's become an interesting bat from the left side. He was always interesting. Now he's interesting with a little bit of power upside. Gino Suarez, just 4,500, 3,400 on FanDuel is more correct. 29 home runs, looking for number 30, 213 ISO. Love Gino at the bottom of the lineup here. And then Gabriel Moreno and Geraldo Perdomo are very interesting wraparounds, just given the quality that these two guys get on base with at key positions. 35, 36, you're just taking a nice discount at either catcher or shortstop, or even honestly, you can play both, but I think you're probably just going to be inclined to take one of them. You got a 353 on base out of the catcher with a 107 WRC plus, 348 on base out of Perdomo with a 104 WRC plus, and a little bit of stolen base upside there. Little minor bit of power for both players, but they're most interesting just to put here, take from here, wrap them back around up to those guys. Helps lower the price of the full stack while getting very high quality options. You take a little bit of a haircut in your in your plate appearance potential, but it's minor. And if this team goes off, they're going to go around and around. So definitely interested in some Diamondbacks, basically top to bottom against Darvish. I would say Diamondbacks, Padres, Darvish, Kelly. Despite the higher Vegas total, Darvish actually has the better matchup because there's a couple more strikeouts in this lineup. But really, neither pitcher is overly appealing here. 2 games to go. 2 playable pitchers in this one. We're going to have to talk about this one. Hold on. $6.13. I can get us out by 6:30. We'll be okay. Then I got to update the thing really quickly and get you guys the projections. Maybe I get us out by 6:25. Gain ground. All right, Sears, 72-76 across sites. Just 18.1% strikeouts, but 6.3% walks is not terrible. A 4.43 ERA with a 4.80 xFIP is obviously very ugly. He's given up a 3.55% home run rate, which is not ideal. Even against a team like the Mariners, they do have some power showing, and they've got at least one true home run hitter, with a couple guys who are home run hitters, but have been a little diminished in that department this year. Sears is capable of breaking off good starts, though. We've seen it this year. We've seen it in years past. He's a decent strikeout pitcher on the right day. He has a little bit bit of potential against what has been one of the worst lineups in baseball as far as a DFS opponent. 25.3% strikeout rate for this projected version of the Mariners lineup is super targetable. The confirmed version is in, so let me drop that in here as I talk. So I think for the money, especially on that FanDuel slate, the way that he lands in kind of the middle of the board at the cheapest prices, you go down the top part of that board, it is kind of appealing to consider some JP Sears shares here. 7,600 for that projection. There's really not a lot of daylight between those two projections. 7,200 over here. Not a bad option from right there on the board. You can see him if I take that highlighting away. He's offset by price as compared to basically everybody up there. 7,600 for JP Sears, I'm telling you right now, is a better option than 81 for Jake DeGrom. Crazy as that might be to say. Brian Wu on this side, just a good pitcher. 20.5% Ks in 116 and a third. Started the season hurt, took some bumps throughout the season, came out of a few games, was a frustrating roster in a lot of spots. But a 3.02 ERA, a 3.87 xFIP is probably the real number, but that's still decent. 2.6% walks is absolutely spectacular. Way sub 1 whip is terrific. 11.1% swinging strikes to go with those attributes is great. Very good at missing barrels, inducing weak and medium contact, even for a fly ball trajectory pitcher. As long as you're working like this, no issues with it. 3.09% home runs, arguably maybe a little unlucky, couple in there. The A's definitely can hit home runs. They've got that upside. We got Brent Rooker, but we have no Shea Langoliers. That said, they are throwing some of their better lefties at the righty here. Lawrence Butler's having a good year. 43-31, 22 homers, 18 steals, 233 ISO, 135 WRC+. Butler's been totally legit. 4,300, 3,100 in the outfield is a good buy. It's just Wu is quite good at what he does. Not damaged for power too frequently, so I don't love the spot there. 7.42 though in the home run model, not nothing. Brent Rooker cracks through the top of the home run model because he's Brent Rooker. That's what he does. 38 homers on the season, 11 steals is a nice little bonus for fantasy scoring. 298, 369, 567, a 270 ISO, and a tremendous year. He's an absolute must if you choose to roster the A's today. JJ Bleday, 36, 3,000, a lefty, 20 home runs on the board, a 198 ISO. Doesn't exactly make killer contact, but the 8.4% barrels is enough at those prices. Tyler Soderstrom is really interesting. 3,200 at first base. If you're going to the A's, 14.1% barrels, 48.4% hard hits from the kid so far, 8 home runs and 200 plate appearances, a 186 ISO. Very high-end prospect for them. That is an interesting bat. He's also high strikeout, capable of giving you a couple zeros, but there is power there for sure. Seth Brown also has power from the left side. 5.43 in the home run model might not totally reflect the true quality. 14 home runs this year. Was a 25-homer guy a couple of years ago with some steals. Zach Geloff has 17 homers and 24 steals this year, just an 83 WRC+. A lot of inconsistency. 34% strikeouts is aggressively high, 7 points up from last year's numbers, but that's kind of why he's so cheap. For the counting stat upside at second base, you can definitely take a few shares of Zach Geloff if you're stacking A's. Don't say, hey, I need Zach Geloff, let me grab some A's. Do it the other way around. Jake Wilson, 24-22 at shortstop, a mixer with the reputation of being an average and on-base kind of a player. Hasn't really shown that in 95 plate appearances in the show so far. Kyle McCann, just a mix-and-match quality catcher, 5 home runs and 150 plate appearances. And then Darryl Hernaiz is another guy who got on base and hit for good average throughout his run in the minors. So for dead min price at shortstop and third base on FanDuel, 23 at third base on DraftKings, if you're stacking up a bunch of A's, he's at least in the mix against Wu, one of the guys who might be able to reach first base a couple times, but overall greatly favor Wu in the matchup. On the Mariners side, Sears is the more vulnerable of these two pitchers, and they do have a decent man-for-man top end with Julio, Cal Raleigh, and Randy Arozarena. After that, though, you get into Mitch Garver, Dylan Moore, Haniger, J.P. Crawford. It's pretty bad after the top three. Top three underperformed their seasons, but they're kind of pulling things together late. 117, 114, and 115 WRC plus marks now. 20 home runs apiece for Julio and Randy. 24 and 20 stolen bases. It's a dynamite combo when they're going well. In the middle of those two, 31 home runs on the board for the switch-hitting catcher. Pretty tremendous contact numbers for Cal Raleigh. 15% barrels, 48.1% hard hits. All three of those guys, though, fairly high strikeout targets. 2 out of those 3 guys are decent walk players. Sears, limited for walks, limited for strikeouts, with the ability to punch his way up for a few additional strikeouts. Mitch Garver can add to that. 31% strikeouts out of Mitch this year in exchange for 14 home runs, a 171, 286, 333 slash line. Pretty non-intimidating hitter there at this point in Mitch Garver's career. Dylan Moore, 28.5% strikeouts, completely underwhelming slash line. Somehow a 107 WRC plus, probably against the walk rate at 11.6%, gives him a 320 on base. Limited option, though, despite what this might say. Haniger striking out nearly 30% of the time in exchange for 209, 285, 338, and 85 WRC plus and just 12 home runs. J.P. Crawford cratered from 380 on base last year to 307 this year. Hasn't done anything with his 440 plate appearances. 105 opportunities for Luis Urias has been pretty bad. 4 home runs and 97 WRC plus with a 198 ISO. At least he's barreled the ball 12.3% of the time, but striking out 32.4%. Leo Rivas striking out nearly 30% of the time. This confirmed version of the Mariners lineup, 28.1% strikeouts. They do draw walks, but Sears, that's not really a downside attribute for Sears. 6.8 this year, 7.2 last year, 8% the year before. He's not bad in terms of walking hitters, so maybe they exploited a little bit and pushed that up on him, but don't hate the spot for J.P. Sears, oddly. This one easily goes Brian Wu, J.P. Sears, Mariners bats, A's bats. Close there on the bats. Greatly favor the pitchers in this one, though. All right, last game up, gang. We did it. Last game up, last game of the year for the last show of the, at least the regular season. We'll see what happens with playoffs. We'll see what happens with Monday. But if this is the last game, it's been an absolute blast. It's been really fun doing this all year with you guys. Miles Michaelis, 5,500, 6,900 across sites. We're going to find a little bit of playability in Michaelis, but keep in mind that at this price, which is really where he's appealing, this one, not so much. At that price, he is actually drawing ownership on DraftKings. He's going up against a team with a 27.1% strikeout rate for this projected version of the lineup. There are aggressive free swingers in that lineup. But when you're a pitch-to-contact guy like Miles Michaelis, that can also come with a lot of downside, especially when there's good bat-on-ball skills. And if there's one thing this Giants team can do, it's put good bat-on-ball. That's 5 guys in the lineup with double-digit barrel rates, and we're talking about a couple few points above 10. Basically everybody through the lineup, except for Brett Wisely and Tyler Fitz, oddly, has a 40+% hard hit rate. So while there are strikeouts, and while that might push Michaelis into the 1 in 5 range rather than the 17% range, while he doesn't really walk anybody or give up a lot of free passes and free opportunities, he is, because of all that contact and that just pitch to contact nature, pitching to a 5.35 ERA with a 4.07 xFIP. He's given up a 3.59% home run rate, reasonable fly ball trajectory over the line, 88.7 miles an hour of exit velos under the line, but not, aggressively good. 7.8% barrel, same thing. This is a exploitable pitcher. I'm kind of interested in Giants bats if a lot of people are leaning the other way on DK. I don't think that's going to be a scenario on FanDuel, but I don't mind considering some Giants for cheap prices against Miles Michaelis as just like a late night hammer. It's not hammer in the nature of like being a 5+ total at the end of the night, but this Giants team could succeed against this pitcher. I'm telling you right now. On the other side, the Cards against Landon Roop, you can see the impact that Roop's home run numbers are having. I didn't bother to do anything to tweak it because 1 home run in 46 2/3, a lot of relief work, three starts, also effective in the minors for limiting home run power. So I just left it alone because the Cards team hasn't been really good at hitting home runs anyway. Alec Burleson has 21. Goldschmidt has 22 in a limited year. Also getting on base at just a 299 clip, has a 97 WRC plus. Arenado has just 16 home runs, a 122 ISO, 101 WRC plus. Nobody else above 20 home runs. Nobody else above even the 15 that Mason Wynn has. Limited team. That doesn't really push me toward Landon Roop shares, though. 22.1% Ks, but a 12.3% walk rate. As mentioned, a lot of that work came out of the pen. 5 innings against KC. He did pitch a clean game. 3 hits, no runs. Struck out 3 and walked 3. 5 innings against the Pods, same thing. 2 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks. 5 innings against the Brewers. 2 runs, 5 hits, 3 strikeouts, no walks. I think we should probably cap 5 innings, that kind of a performance. Maybe it's only a couple of runs against, but probably not a slate winning day for 77 on DK, which is where you would play it. 7,000, you're probably not rolling those dice on FanDuel. If you're going to the Cards bats, Mason Wynn, mix and match quality for DFS off the top. Better real life shortstop, but 15 homers, 11 steals, a 102 WRC plus. Definitely playable. More of a correlated scoring player and needs to get on base more to support that truly, but he's playable. Burleson is cheap for a guy with 21 home runs, but he's only got 21 home runs. runs, a 155 ISO. He's an unimpressive hitter. Goldschmidt at least has a 10.3% barrel, 48% hard hits. He's only 41, 3,000 across sites. He does lead the team with 22 home runs, but it's a really bad toward the end of the career season out of Goldie. 4,029 for Arenado. We've talked about it for at least the second half of the season. Just 3.3% barrel, 31% hard hits. One of the worst swings in baseball, a 101 WRC plus. It's honestly a wonder he was ever as good as he was. Donovan, 35-31, 13 home runs, surged a little bit. 111 WRC plus. He's always playable. He does square the ball up decently, but it's not really reflected in the barrel rate, the hard hit rate. It's just from time to time he can be a little bit more impactful as a hitter. What his true attribute is just getting on base, provided correlating scoring. He should probably be the leadoff hitter for this team. Ivan Herrera, 38-27 for a catcher with 9.1% barrels, 41.7% hard hits. Totally reasonable. Good 254 plate appearances in the books, a 125 WRC plus. Reasonable option going forward for cheap catcher shares. Lars Nootbaar, 31-28, a mediocre season, over 391 chances for him. 5 home runs, 5 steals, but one of the more likely candidates for 11 home runs, 7 steals. I jumped up a line. One of the more likely candidates for a long ball from this team, despite what the model says based on the numbers that Roop has put up so far. Jordan Walker, another guy who's kind of interesting for a cheap price down lineup, 10.3% barrels, 43% hard hits. Despite the lack of output this year, I continue to think he's a good player, but it's not a good spot for offense today. Michael Ciani, 23-24, just mix and match in a bad spot for offense. If you go to the Giants, which I'm strongly considering it because of how cheap they are, Yastrzemski's interesting, 35-29. He's hit 18 home runs. That's only okay, but he's got a 208 ISO, a 108 WRC plus, carrying a 10.1% barrel and 41.1% hard hits against a guy who just allows contact. That's interesting to me. Elliot Ramos for 4,000 on DK, 33 on FanDuel, has an 8.96 to lead the team in the home run model. He's hit 22 this season. He's got a 204 ISO. He's the only player in the history of this ballpark to hit one into the cove as a right-handed bat. There is real power there. 14.8% barrels, 47.2% hard hits. Lamont Wade barrels the ball frequently, 9.3% barrels, 44.3% hard hits. He could have given this team another guy with a double-digit barrel rate. Hasn't done that in the show yet, but has always been a high nines or mid-nines barrel guy. 2,900, 3,000 for a guy who gets on at a 383 clip, creates runs 21% better than average, and does have upside for a squarely hit ball, at least from the left side. Definitely interesting. Matt Chapman is the most expensive DraftKings player on this team, 4,400 over there. That's a nothing price. 35 on FanDuel. He's hit 27 home runs and stolen 15 bases this year. He's got a 214 ISO, 120 WRC plus. There's a lot of teams that regret not signing Matt Chapman to play third base this year, given the numbers he's put up. This is a resurgent Matt Chapman. Conforto, another lefty, 12% barrels, 46.2% hard hits. I can buy that for $3,600 against a guy who's pitching to a 17% strikeout rate and just 3.4% walks, so everything gets contacted with. Absolutely, I'm interested in that play. 20 home runs on the season for Conforto, a 216 ISO. Just let the ISOs guide you to the players that you want. Patty Bailey, mix and match quality, 42.1% hard hits for a $3,200 catcher is not nothing against, again, a pitcher who pitches to contact. Probably the least appealing bat in this lineup, but he's playable on DraftKings, skippable on FanDuel, but he's only 24 over there. Tyler Fitch, $4,300 shortstop on DK, 15 homers, 17 steals, a 136 WRC plus, 224 ISO, despite the medium contact that he's made. High strikeout, low walk, a lot of decently struck balls in play. 3,300, he's got 3 position eligibility on FanDuel, shortstop, second, and outfield. Love the option at second base. Grant McCray, 2,700 across sites, 5 home runs and 5 steals in just 123 plate appearances makes him interesting enough. Barreling the ball 12.1, 42.4% hard hits. More interesting than Brett Wisely if you got to take one of the last 2 guys. Wisely just 4 homers, 2 steals, 69 WRC plus. Very limited for contact. And that is your Giants team, gang. Giants bats, Cardinals bats. Neither pitcher for me. One last look at one last pitching board for the year. Coming up on 6:30, I'm going to punch this out momentarily. I'm going to do this quick. Rodon, top option on the board. These 2 guys, excellent options for the price, especially on DraftKings. There's a strong mix of value pitchers here and here, as well as some of these guys and some of these guys on DK. Mix and match your way through a lot of those guys. Put combinations of those guys together, although this will be an incredibly highly owned. Wu and Pivetta as a combo is going to be very popular. Well worth doing. Tons of upside, tons of strikeouts for those 2 pitchers at great pricing. Just know that's going to be a popular combo. Don't love Lopez against the Orioles because of the opponent, but 88 is a good price for him on DraftKings. Like Manaea better at 99.87, even for a little bit more on FanDuel with the potential that he's got against the Brewers. Jake DeGrom, again, I don't think there's any ceiling on those numbers. If you just want to buy those medium projections and hope for the best, go for it for those prices because he can probably get you there. But you're looking at most likely 4 innings, and that's it. So no win bonus, no upside, no nothing. Bradley, decent strikeout upside, 9,000 to 8,300 most particularly on DraftKings. That's really interesting. There are strikeouts available in that diminished version, no Devers, no O'Neill of the Red Sox lineup, but that's still a dangerous lineup to tangle with in Fenway. Jose Barrios, tons of upside at 10,000, 9,000, especially if he's going to be low owned. Depends on whose ownership numbers you believe. Probably falls truth in the middle around 10, 12%. I think that's playable. Great matchup. Not a pitcher I like at all. I think he's around the, again, slightly above league average is not necessarily an insult, but I mean it as one a lot of the time. Max Fried against KC. Low strikeout option. Excellent option for 7 clean innings, though. That's what you get a lot of the time out of Max. 95, 94, not a great fit for the price paradigm on this slate, but he's playable. Jared Jones, a little bit more strikeout potential against the Yankees. Obviously a very high danger spot, but that is a greatly diminished version of the Yankees lineup. Jones is downright interesting today because there's no Aaron Judge, there's no Giancarlo Stanton. It's a messy, messy Yankees lineup. JP Sears, probably my favorite value option on both sites at 76, 72. Just fits in nicely. And again, no real daylight between his projection and even Brian Wu all the way up in the 2 spot. That's a strikeout difference. Ronel Blanco, 91, 96. Just kind of mispriced for a matchup against a low strikeout, pretty good Guardians lineup. Yu Darvish, same thing, 93, 86. Kind of mispriced for a matchup against a very, very good Diamondbacks lineup. I like Reed Detmers at price against the Rangers. Singer's okay, just kind of medium price, 85, 82. Doesn't really work against like even Detmers right there for the same projection. But there are Ks for Singer in that Atlanta lineup. A lot of weather in that area too, though. Kelly against the Pods, pretty tough fit at price. Montez against the Mets, playable, but not the spot for me. 78, 7,000, more playable here than he is here. A little bit of strikeout upside, but a lot of danger for power. Michaelis against the Giants. I could see the upside, but again, he is going to be popular at that 55. That's playable on DraftKings, but you're going to walk right down the line with everybody else who's building. And I tell you what, anybody who's going to the Dodgers at Coors Field, anybody on DraftKings who plays Shohei Ohtani tonight probably has Miles Michaelis on the mound. Just bear that in mind as you build lineups. The best way to get there if you're not putting Miles Michaelis on the mound is honestly, almost certainly, to put Reed Detmers and JP Sears as your 2 pitchers. That'll probably get you 3-man Dodgers, and then you go from there. I would probably do that before I did Michaelis in that combo, just because everybody else would do it the other way and take the cheaper pitcher, and that's why Michaelis is going to be popular. Contillo, just kind of a no against Houston. Roop, kind of a no against St. Louis. Aller, kind of a no against Toronto. Povich, kind of a no against Minnesota. That said, at price, any one of those 4 guys could be in the mix for value shares on DraftKings. They're all at least moderately talented, but there's a big downside for all of those guys, and not one of those is a great opponent. And then don't play the Coors Field pitchers, play the bats. Here's the home run board one last time. That's what it looks like. Kyle Tucker doubling up the magic number. Aaron Judge not in the lineup. Tyler O'Neill not in the lineup. Anthony Santander is, though. Juan Soto is. Tristan Casas is. Jose Ramirez pick of the day. 14.2. Love the option. All right, guys. That said, 6:32. Let me punch out of here so that I can get some stuff updated on the website with the current projections. 2.5 hours deep. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Just check back for notification on when the football show goes live. I promise we're going to do it. Probably going to be in the late afternoon after the Yankees game and after I get back from that. So figure 6:30, 7 o'clock, somewhere in that territory. We'll go 2-3 hours. We'll talk the slate up and down. If you're looking for football content, we did a show about it yesterday, focused on the main slate, overview, quarterbacks, game environments type show. Probably gives you a lot of information that you want. Can I rank the stacks for tonight before signing off? You know that's on the website every day, right, Mama? Just check the website. There's a whole stack rankings graphic and everything. So not really. Real quick is kind of clunky. What I'll tell you, let me pull it up. What I'll tell you is I definitely would knock the Yankees down from where they were on that stacks board. Just the version of the Yankees lineup that they put out, really not great. So they come down a few pegs. Toronto's kind of interesting given that run total against Adam Oller, but it's a lineup that's scuffled and is probably going to be a little bit more popular than they deserve. Dodgers are obvious, but they're going to be super popular. Of course, field for those that can afford them. I love the Diamondbacks. They rank number 2 even against Darvish. That said, not a ton of value pricing in that lineup. Mets are kind of interesting again. Frankie Montas for me with all the power potential he could give up. Houston's right there. Colorado on the other side of the Coors Field game always goes a little bit under-owned and maybe a pushover matchup for them. Twins against Cade Povich is on the board for a little bit of potential upside. They rank out great once again for value on DraftKings while showing a fair amount of power potential. That's like your top half. That's a quick tour through the top half. But just check the website. There's a whole board up there about it. Hope that helped, buddy. Appreciate you guys. Absolutely rock. The 13 of you diehards that are still here hanging out watching the end of this rant. Really appreciate the hell out of you guys. It was another fun baseball season. We'll be going through football. We'll be doing basketball. And before we know it, we'll be back around to opening day. But if we don't do playoff shows for baseball, know that I appreciate every single one of you guys. This was a blast this season. Hit the like button, subscribe, check out Ace Mind, hang out in the Discord. Make sure you're still around. Even if you're not playing football and basketball, I still want to hear from you guys over the winter. That said, one last time, good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. See ya.